Hey, Jim. Well, good morning. This is, and good afternoon to those folks who are joining the call. This is Church Key, the ARCTIC Awareness Center. We'll be getting started with our ADAC Program Year 6 fourth quarter Customer Partners Roundtable here in just a few minutes. Thank you for joining us. Hey, gentlemen, good morning. This is, good afternoon. This is Church Key, the ARCTIC Awareness Center. We'll start with our ADAC's fourth quarter Program Year 6 Customer Partners Roundtable here in just a few minutes. Thank you for joining us. We're grateful for this gift of your time. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning and good afternoon. This is Church Key, the ARCTIC Awareness Center. We'll be getting started with our fourth quarter Program Year 6 Customer Partners Roundtable in approximately 4 minutes. Thank you for joining us. We're grateful for this gift of your time. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon. This is Church Key, the ARCTIC Awareness Center. Welcome to today's edition of the Customer Partners Roundtable as we're finishing Program Year 6, getting ready for Program Year 7. We'll be getting started here in approximately 4 minutes, getting our Program Year 6 fourth quarter Customer Partners Roundtable underway. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon. This is Church Key at the ARCTIC Awareness Center. Welcome to our fourth quarter Program Year 6 Customer Partners Roundtable. We'll be getting started here in approximately just inside of 4 minutes from now. And just as a protocol coming in with folks that are calling, if I could ask you to be on mute, I'd be grateful for that. We do have the opportunity, of course, and we'll talk about this as we get underway, but we do have the opportunity for everybody to ask questions of our teams as they pile in here. And we do look forward to, frankly, a good, robust discussion with all as we get underway for this. And it's a chance to pepper questions to these researchers in a way that hopefully is great help. So again, more to follow in a few moments. We'll get underway. Thanks again for coming. We're looking forward to the discussions. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon. This is Church Key at the ARCTIC Awareness Center. We're about 2 minutes out from starting our Program Year 6 fourth quarter Customer Partners Roundtable. We're grateful for this gift of your time for folks coming in. And we know that this is a time of season where a lot of folks are trying to take time off. And so we recognize that having a meeting in late June is not necessarily ideal for many folks who are trying to squeeze in some personal time in the fleeting moments of summer, but we do appreciate this time for you to join us. We'll hopefully make it a meaningful discussion. We have a robust set of discussions planned for today, and we'll be getting formally started here in just a few moments. One thing to mention, though, is since we're at our ADAC's Program Year 6 annual meeting that was conducted on the 14th of May, did not have an awful lot of time for folks to ask questions unless you called in on day 2. Today is the day to kind of make up for that, hopefully, for all who are willing to pepper our questions to our researchers. And one thing I would mention, kind of a ground rule, is that you're welcome to use the chat box. You're welcome to send emails to me. You're welcome to also send texts, whatever works for you. I will be your moderator and translator. And so hopefully it will help with everybody getting questions to our colleagues in that are that will be fielding those questions. So again, we'll be getting started here in about 1 minute. I decided to give you guys a little bit of a ground rule. Grateful for the gift of your time. And just as we get underway here, we're about 1 minute out. I just want to say thanks to all of our friends and partners and customers and colleagues who are able to join us today. And I will also say a special thanks to our to ADAC's executive counselors who are joining us today. I know we have several on the line here, and so I'm grateful for the leadership that our ADAC executive counselors provide. I do know that I believe Dr. John Farrell is able to join us. So our senior, if you will, the dean of our customer partners, the dean of our executive counselors, and also Rear Admiral retired Rudy Peschel. I believe also that Dr. Paul Hubbard is trying to join us as well. So we'll see for those folks who can join us. I'm grateful again for the leadership of ADAC's executive counselors for being in the call today. Looking at the clock.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Looking at the clock now, we're getting underway. I'd like to say formally, welcome to the Customer Partners Roundtable for the fourth quarter, program year 6. We transition to program year 7 on the 1st of July. And I'd ask folks if we could to please mute the microphone if this is at all possible. Thanks much. So as we go into this discussion today, we will finish program year 6 on the 30th of June and start program year 7 on the 1st of July. We have just received approval yesterday from our program manager at the Department of Homeland Security Science Technology Office of University Programs. And this approval for us is approval for the overall program. We have 3 projects that are in final review for their program year 7 activities, and this is for the Arctic Ice Conditions Index, the Marine Induced Polarization Project, and the propeller-driven long-range autonomous underwater vehicle. Those 3 projects, of course, for us, we will get underway once we get Headquarters Coast Guard's final review and again sign off at DHS Science and Technology Office of University Programs. And the reason for this is frankly quite simple. Everything right now in the research enterprise has been impacted to some level based on the coronavirus COVID-19. And we do know that our project champions at Headquarters U.S. Coast Guard, who are the reviewer and review authorities for each of our projects, have a specific amount of new events that have been placed on their table in response to COVID-19. And one of the most significant impacts, of course, is to what I call our leading project champion for the amount of work that she does in support of the center, and this is Captain Kirsten Trago. Captain Trago has been on point for quite some time now in leading the Headquarters Coast Guard's COVID-19 response efforts. So we just got a great note from her just a couple of days ago saying that she is finally back able to finish those tasks as far as her COVID-19 crisis response, and now resuming her normal positions and her normal duties as she tries to sort out all the immense amount of materials that come to her since she's been really dual tasked and trying to tackle the COVID-19 response for the Coast Guard. We know that that construct extends to more than just Captain Trago, and so we do know that as we continue to move into program year 7, we hope that the response efforts for COVID-19 can slacken to allow our colleagues in Headquarters Coast Guard to be able to devote more time and efforts to advancing the research that's intended to be to the benefit of the Coast Guard and other Arctic operators within the Homeland Security enterprise, of course, and to also for the public good. We at this point in the center are have been learning a lot in how to schedule and reschedule many of our activities as a result of the COVID-19 impacts for in-person events. As many people understand, ADAC is involved in 3 major lines of effort. One of those, of course, is our day-to-day, which is advancing science, technology, and support of the Arctic operator. The second of which is education programs. And then third, of course, is the convening events. And the convening events, which has been a mainstay aspect for our center, in-person activities, has of course been greatly impacted by COVID-19. And we're learning the ways of going virtual. And we know, of course, that we're just among the many that are learning those events, learning that new methodology, if you will. right now for us, of course, as in context of this, we do have quite a few activities that were scheduled for spring of 2020 that's been pushed to the fall of 2020. I'll give you a quick update for these and then continue with other updates as we go. But before I go into that, I just recognized that I have our principal investigator, Doug Causey, joined on the call. So I just looked at the screen and saw that. So before I go on, let me give a brief moment for Dr. Causey as our PI to make a short intro. Doug? Douglas?
Well, at this point, I will keep this quite short. I appreciate everyone showing up. If that's the term we use on Zoom, do we show up, right? We take the quarterly customers roundtable really seriously because it allows us both to report to who the end user is of what we do, as well as get feedback from all of you, which I hope we will on particular ways to go forward or how to advance what we're doing. Welcome, everyone. I'm glad to see at least images of you, and let's get started.
Thank you, Douglas. And this is as an open remark, this is a working level meeting. So this is for in the working level meeting, it's an informal perspective here. We definitely want your informal thoughts, questions, and what if we can't field today, we will take for the record and get an answer back to you. And just a reminder, we are also recording this to provide the link out for folks who are not able to join us today. I have several folks that said they really wanted to be here, but their June calendar has been crushed, and so they're not able to join us. So they asked specifically for an opportunity to have the meeting recorded. So in that context, we are recording this, and we're only providing it out to the folks that ask us as far as specific details. And of course, we also recognize that this can help folks understand what kind of the nature of the questions are, help our researchers focus their energies as we move into program year 7. So in this context, I'd offer several things as we focus initially on some of the workshops, and I'll talk about our current research and give a little bit of the center overview aspects. But one of the near-term aspects is our workshops that have been pushed from the spring of 2020 to the fall. First of all, of course, is our ADAC-ARCTIC Incidents and National Significance Workshop planned for the originally planned for the 1st and 2nd April 2020 has now been pushed, of course, to 26, 27 August here at the University of Alaska Anchorage. We are now in process in working with our colleagues at U.S. Coast Guard District 17, headquartered in Juneau, to make essentially a hybrid approach for this workshop. What we'll be doing now is the initial piece, and the details are in work, but we'll host a virtual event on the 26th of August and as a starting point to flesh out this exercise. And then following that initial virtual event, we'll schedule an in-person event later in program year 7 for U.S. Coast Guard to get the players together around the table based on what we learn on the initial day of the 26th of August. So what you'll see is essentially an extended workshop, day 1 on 26th of August, and then a later in-person event when COVID-19 permits. Second of all, the Arctic Maritime Horizons workshop, which is focused on essentially the maritime transportation system, a review of the Bering, Chukchi, and Beaufort Sea regions, has been asked to be by our colleagues at the Senior Arctic Policy Advisor at the Commandant of the U.S. Coast Guard to make this an in-person event and slip the event to the right to when we can do a in-person event. The idea is that we have 2 dates we now established on the calendar for this. It's really the first week in December, and then the second is the first week in February for this particular Arctic Maritime Horizons workshop. Again, the Senior Arctic Policy Advisor wants this event to be an in-person activity, and so therefore we're slipping that particular workshop to the right. The next, of course, is the 17th and 18th of September's Advancing Collaboration Canada-U.S. Arctic Regional Security, the ADAC-ARCTIC workshop. That is going to be a virtual event conducted on the 17th and 18th of September, and we're going to be using a combination of WebEx and also a chat session that will be a structured chat for the participants. And we're researching chat options right now that would complement the WebEx event, and this will begin a virtual event. We'll have open registration. This is as soon as we decide on the specific chat mechanism. It is a CanUS focus event, so our Canadian colleagues, of course, all our workshops are heartily welcome and opening to our Canadian colleagues, but this is specifically a partnership approach between ADAC and the North American and Arctic Defense and Security Network, NADCEN, that is led by Dr. Whitney Blackenbauer and his colleagues at Trent University at Peterborough, Ontario. So that event, again, is going virtual, and that will be conducted on schedule on the 17th and 18th of September. So again, 26 August, Arctic Ions 2020 virtual. Date either in the first week of December and the first week of February for the Arctic Maritime Horizons workshop, and then on schedule, on time, virtually on the 17th and 18th of September for Advancing Collaboration with CanUS Arctic Regional Security. And again, that was a workshop that had been previously scheduled for the latter part of March and pushed to the right. So then a virtual event for that. Those are the near-term activities that we have on workshops. I want to give you that information as an update. And then second of all, right now, as far as we're finishing the program year 6 activities and preparing for program year 7, you'll hear from each of our project teams today. But in sum, what we've been able to do is, obviously, we've been in telework status. I know, of course, most of the nation has, as most of the planet has been, since the 17th of March. We went into deep dive, of course, in each of the projects and their current ability to meet scheduled milestones and desired outcomes during the 14th of May annual meeting. Right now, of course, we're seeing the laboratory spaces now opening up and workshops now opening up. We are now looking forward to kind of picking up work that was previously slowed in program year 6, and really some of the work that's planned to be completed in program year 6 now being rescheduled to be completed in program year 7. What's the strategic outtake of all this for us is that we in ADAC right now have been working to make sure that we're doing all the carry forward activities, as of course fiscally, but also research-wise, that was scheduled to be completed in year 6 to have it, of course, be pushed into year 7. The one thing that has helped us, of course, is that right now, as we've announced in previous times, ADAC was originally funded on a 5-year cooperative agreement. We were granted a 2-year extension, and so essentially giving us a program years, a total of 7 program years of funded activity. We were just recently awarded a notification that we have now a program year 8 on the calendar. We will find out what's our funding level, of course, of that as we go later into program year 7. But what's helpful for us is that activities that we were really stressing to try to get completed in program year 7. Now we have a program year 8 that is available to us. That really helps us as a center better account for the impacts of COVID-19 and the slowing of some of our research activities, especially the field aspects and in-person activities. Those events will allow for us to be extended into program year 8 to get that done properly. And we are feeling a little bit less stressed because we are trying to figure everything that couldn't be done in 6, try to get it done in 7. Knowing we have a year 8 is really helpful for us. I'm grateful for Mr. Bill Ryan and his team at the Department of Homeland Security Science Technology for granting us this additional year of research authorizations. And again, we'll stand by for the funding level associated with that. One thing I'll share with you, of course, as we look to some of the events that were planned as a result of the Arctic Ions 2020 activities, those of course also were supposed to be completed in program year 7. That allows the funded study that was coming out of Arctic Ions 2020 to be completed in program year 8. Again, a great relief for us. I'd like to now take a brief moment to make the announcement about our Arctic Ions 2019. We have an accepted proposal that is at least the first of, and maybe the only one. We don't know at this point for sure, but we're anticipating we're happy for this one at least, and we're looking forward to any more that may come. But Arctic Ions 2019 accepted proposal. I'll ask Ms. Jessica Guerin, are you on the call at this point?
Yes, sir, I am.
Great. So Jessica, I'd like to give you a brief moment to just give a quick update on your accepted proposal that you're in the process now of turning into a work plan proposal for DHS and Coast Guard review. Go ahead and take the floor and give us a quick update.
Thank you, Church, and thank you to everybody that's been able to join us this morning or this afternoon for this discussion. I apologize that I can only join over the phone today, but hopefully if there's any additional questions that are showing up in chat, maybe those could be relayed to me as they arise. So thank you, everyone. As I mentioned, my name is Jessica Guerin, and I live here in Fairbanks, Alaska, and am the science team lead for the unmanned aircraft, the Alaska Center for Unmanned Aircraft Systems Integration, which is a bit of a mouthful, but also known as a quasi. You may have heard of our team's work and all of the accomplishments we have made recently with flying beyond visual line of sight using unmanned aircraft or drones. That notwithstanding, I'm going to be talking with you today real briefly about the project Remote Unmanned Aircraft System Inspection and Response Team Development in the Bering Strait region. And I use the terms, just real quick on the vocab, I use terms unmanned vehicle, UAV, UAS, and drone, often interchangeably, though they're slightly different. In this particular case, and for this particular project, the only UAVs or drones that I'm actually referencing are the small multi-rotor type copter style. I won't be referencing or using or discussing any fixed-wing long-range vehicles. This project is focused on the community level UAV development in support of the U.S. Coast Guard's mission for infrastructure inspection as well as emergency response. So to meet those mission needs, what we have proposed to do is to train pilot and co-pilot teams in the community of Unalakleet. Unalakleet is a rural Alaskan community along the Bering Strait in the Norton Sound region. It is a hub community for the very smaller communities surrounding it in Norton Sound. And the largest, I would say, well-connected community to relate to would be Nome. Nome is the largest hub above Unalakleet. So what we are planning to do is training a few pairs of pilot and co-pilots on how to fly UAVs safely in the airspace of Unalakleet and in and around the Norton Sound. Once these pilots have been effectively trained by our team, and we have the pilot experience and the prowess to be able to do this safely and effectively and legally. Once the pilot teams have been trained, we will then be co-producing protocols for infrastructure inspection, most specifically for tank farms and for the infrastructure which is carrying fuel to and from those tank farms. The reason why we've chosen this as one of the main things we want to fly UAVs for is during the Arctic Ions meetings we had in 2020, the Sector Anchorage was put on a presentation having to do with their tank inspection programs, their fuel tank inspection programs all across rural Alaska, and the challenges they face with getting out there to do the inspections, and once they are out there, being able to quickly and easily identify issues in a way that is productive for the community and safe for the environment. So our goal with developing protocols for flying drones in support of this mission is that we can speed up this effort and have that effort supported by flying regular flights using drones, using local teams in and around the Norton Sound region that can provide that information in a format that Coast Guard can consume to Sector Anchorage on a semi-regular basis. So that, and then have pilots trained that can fly those inspection flights with the U.S. Coast Guard if that is a service they want to employ. The second major protocol development that we're going to co-produce with our partners in Unalakleet has to do with emergency response. During IONS 2019, we had a number of very dramatic scenarios that involve complete lack of communications, as well as just massive destruction. And so in an effort to address some of the immediate hazards associated with emergency response, we are planning to co-produce protocols for immediate situational awareness that can be used anywhere in and around the Norton Sound region as a model for expansion into the rest of Alaska. But this will be a way that we'll be producing protocols with Coast Guard and the community of Unalakleet on how to prepare yourself as well as your mission to collect information over an emergency that is usable for decision makers locally and remotely. So part of all this is the communications piece on how we deliver those data to sector anchorage and to other Coast Guard entities as required and other emergency responders. So those are the three main things that we have proposed to do. Train pilots that are deployable in and around the Norton Sound region in the native village of Unalakleet. Develop operational protocols for regular tank inspections and infrastructure inspections. Develop operational protocols for emergency response. Now, since we proposed this, things have changed somewhat. And the communications piece and delivering the instruction on UAVs is facing some immediate challenges due to our inability to get out to Unalakleet and work face-to-face with our partners. So we are currently developing solutions on how we can get this project rolling remotely in the immediate, so that when we are able to work with our partners face-to-face and fly together in and around Norton Sound and have our community meetings to describe this work to the native village of Unalakleet, as well as all of our sponsors and project members. Until we can do that, we must get started now. So we're going to have to expand our scope a little bit into some more of this, to a more of an online presence. And we are working with the University of Alaska eCampus to figure out ways that we can most effectively deliver content and keep our project partners engaged throughout the duration of this work. So I know that was a big mouthful, and I'm hopeful that it was clear in content. I would be happy to answer any questions now or in the future about this project. And I'm just very grateful for the support of the ADAC team and DHS in supporting this work and giving us the opportunity to advance these remote sensing technologies for both the U.S. Coast Guard and rural Alaska.
Terrific. Thank you for that update, and really appreciate this, Jessica. But at this point, I'll ask if folks have any questions, you would text them to me. We're running, once again, just a little bit tight on time, so you can text me or you can chime in, whatever best works for you. I did, for a few folks, I had muted some of the open mics there just simply to get the background noise down a little bit lower. So if there's any way of getting through, you can welcome to email, welcome to hit the chat box. Otherwise, we can certainly also take your questions for the record and cycle them back to you. So at this point, I'll ask, are there any specific questions that we could field for our colleague, Jessica Guerin? The microphones are open. Please, Dr. Farrell, I respectfully yield the floor to you for a question, sir.
Thanks very much. I'd be curious to hear an example of how the co-production works when you're developing those protocols. Could you perhaps run us through an example of a protocol and how you did the co-production with the community members?
Sure. So I can talk about doing a co-production project with U.S. Coast Guard and some of our natural resource trustees that we just are finalizing now, actually. So one of the things that I have done as part of my research in the past year is to be in, this is a separate example, embedded in oil spill response exercises. Through that effort, I began to develop flight protocols for how to safely integrate UAVs into oil spill response. I was sitting there with my partners in oil spill response and the trustee agencies and industry when we were defining what works and what does not work for each one of us, for what reason and why. We also were integrating all of the legal requirements of the FAA on how we could safely use UAS in these airspaces. Through this iterative process working together, we created the UAS protocol that is now being integrated into the Arctic and Western Alaska Area Contingency Plan, vetted with all of our trustee agencies, as well as industry and the Coast Guard. So that is one example of how I have worked in producing co-producing UAS protocols. In this particular case, we'll be doing that same effort in the native village of Unalakleet with my partners in that community that I've been working with for over 2 years now. So this is a slightly different flavor because we're not embedded in an incident command post sitting elbow to elbow, but that is why we are going to be out in the field in Unalakleet, flying with our partners and building these flight protocols together with our U.S. Coast Guard partners and our community members in Unalakleet. So all of their immediate community concerns, as well as the FAA requirements and the Coast Guard needs, are integrated into the protocol that we continue to iterate on until we have something that we can hand over to anybody to fly in any community in Norton Sound. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Let me ask if there are any other questions at this point. Okay. Well, first of all, Jessica, thank you. Congratulations to you. We look forward to reviewing your work plan in detail. We look forward to getting this underway. And I know that right now, once again, we've been granted some limits as far as in-person activities. So we're now trying to make the best lemonade we can by learning the world of virtual. So let me say thank you to you for that update. I'm grateful for it. We will, of course, be sharing with everybody the Program Year 7 work plan. Once we have this now ready to be published, one thing we're trying to run to ground right now is in this, as I mentioned, we have 3 projects that are in the queue ready for approval, and that's LRAV, Arctic Ice Conditions Index, and then a Marine Induced Polarization Ready Kit. We also have one additional project we proposed in a polar communication and connectivity assessment for headquarters U.S. Coast Guard. And that's a question of whether or not we retain that in the plan currently, or if we move that that proposal into a outside of cooperative agreement planning with essentially the COA's, the basic ordering agreement and the tort process that we have existing between DHS and U.S. Coast Guard. So you'll see when we release this, that's one question about retaining that plan in our current work plan, or if that would be something we'll pull into a separate effort. Separately, I would share with you as we get ready to go to our first project review, and we're running a bit tight on time, but that's important to give you these updates. In addition to what the workshops that we've planned, we are also in the business of planning a series of other activities that support our efforts within the center. And this, of course, one of these is one of the more important ones is the National Cooperative Exchange Program for Polar Research, the Situation Awareness Working Group, the Ice Paper SOG is something we're supporting. Our colleagues at the Chief of Naval Research and the Office of Naval Research is a multinational effort that involves essentially a stone soup approach in each nation bringing research ideas to the table. One of those things for us, of course, is we lead, the ADAC has the privilege of being the U.S. lead for the Ice Paper Situational Awareness Working Group, and we support the overall Danish lead for that program. And again, one of the executives under the U.S. delegation for Ice Paper. So we're trying to do, in addition to support that particular working group, is also support with platform research, and this was regarding our propeller-driven long-range AUV, and we'll talk about that project here shortly. But I'll share with you, in addition to ICE paper, we continue to try to support our colleagues at the Polar Institute of the Woodrow Wilson Center, and this in particular, Dr. Mike Schrager. We're looking at a couple of events that we'll be working with our colleagues at the Wilson Center over the course of this coming year. We also will share with you that we continue to move forward in our DHS summer research team program with our colleagues at Cookman College, working with the University of Alaska Anchorage College of Engineering. ADAC continues to support the Governor of Alaska's Alaska Civil Armed Services team, the ACAS. We're privileged to spend time with some of our executive counselors in this aspect, and this includes, of course, Vice Admiral retired Tom Barrett. We, of course, also are privileged to work with our colleagues at Training University in the North American Arctic Defense and Security Network. We try to participate in the workshops that they're hosting, and we're doing a joint workshop, as I mentioned, this fall. And then lastly, of course, we also would like to try to look at the activities that are important to the research enterprise here for the headquarters U.S. Coast Guard, our colleagues at U.S. Coast Guard Research Development Center. We had a great discussion with the new CEO there at U.S. Coast Guard RDC just a few days ago, and we look forward to continue to support their activities, which includes, of course, Coast Guard, U.S. Coast Guard's Maritime Risk Symposium that's going to be conducted this late October, and that'll be a virtual event on the 26th and 27th. We in ADAC will be honored and privileged to support that. We also like to shout out to our colleagues at the Alaska Federation of Natives, President Julie Kitka and her team. We're honored to support those activities, which there is an event coming up on the 22nd of July that we're privileged to be a part of. And we look forward for those folks that are supporting the collaboration of essentially the Alaska Federation of Natives, in any way we can help support this effort in bringing more holistic views of where governance, research, academics come together to help advance issues for the Arctic. We're just honored to be a part of that. So again, that's just a quick scattergun discussion for you, if you will, blast of information. Hopefully some of that is of relevance to you. I would share with you at this point, it'd be a privilege for me to running a bit late, but want to get into the conversation. And this is the first project queued up. We got Christopher Epley from Bigelow Ocean Laboratories going to give a brief review here of mitigating the damage to Arctic copepods from surface oil spills when to apply disbursements. And I give the floor to Christoph. And again, running a bit tight. I'm sorry for that, Christoph, but great questions being asked. And off you go, and we'll catch up along the way.
Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. For people who are online, I'll share some screens, but I'll just talk through it. So even if you're on the phone, you won't miss anything. Can you see my screen, George?
Yeah, yes, sir. We sure do.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So I want to quickly talk about what we did this last quarter in our project. Our project is looking at the damage of oil spill to Arctic copepods and how can we mitigate the damage by choosing the right time to apply dispersants. So our basis of our project is that copepods are at the foundational species of the ocean food web, and they are, especially in the Arctic, very important, and they're really a sensitive species, so they can react to oil, they can react to a lot of environmental stimulants, and there might be a really sensitive indicator species of oil. The second important thing about copepods is they can swim in the water column vertically hundreds of meters. So all the time during the daytime, they go down, they come up in the night. We want to address some shortcomings in the existing literature to incorporate this vertical movement of the copepods on oil spill. So we want to know, can copepods actively avoid oil hydrocarbons when they swim vertically? And when we have a stagnant water column, a stratified water column, is the oil separated from the copepods spatially? So why do we choose copepods? So Calanus copepods are present in the Arctic everywhere. There are different species with different sizes. There's Calanus marshalla, Hyperboreals, Glacialis, and Finmarchicus. And what they have in common is they hibernate or have a diapause in the wintertime. And to survive this, they accumulate a lot of lipids. then come up after the winter. And this lipids is a great food source for many other animals. So by choosing this copepod, which is very sensitive to oil and has a quick response, we have a species that we can easily measure, that reacts quickly, and that has a big effect downstream. So if you have a lot of copepods, then your fishing is going to be good, and the higher up the food chain animals are also going to be doing good. If you have an impact on copepods, the whole rest of the food chain will also be impacted. For our specific project, we use Callinosphene marchicus. This is a very similar species to the Callinosphene marshala, which you find in the Alaskan Arctic. What we did during the last 3 months, obviously we were impacted by COVID and lab closure, but fortunately up in Maine, and being a small institution, we were able to gradually open in May and start getting experiments underway again. The special thing of copepods is that, as I said, they hibernate in the winter time, so we can only conduct experiments once they come up. So we had to wait until March to start our experiments with copepods again, and this is when we closed the lab. So we were delayed by a couple months, but in May could use the time to set everything up, and now in June start up our experiments. We start up our experiments again, and at the moment we are running with about 1 experiment a week to complete our work plan. What we did, you might remember, in the annual meeting or before, we presented some results from last year's experiments. After we've done this, we realized there is 2 optimization we should do. We should use a better video system and a quicker analytical methods. This is what we did. We have now our setup, how we do our experiments are with 4 cameras instead of with 3, so we can monitor where copepods go when we add oil on top of a water column that stands in the lab. So we want to simulate oil gradients that are occurring in the environment, and we also want to give the copepods the freedom to vertically migrate up and down. And our system allows to do both of this. So as I said, we are up and running again. We did some confirmatory experiments that are repeats from last year to make sure the new copepods from this year react the same way as the last year's. Seems to be the case. And also we managed to recruit some ADAC fellows as summer students that are working with us and being trained and making a great contribution to our project. Originally, this was planned to be an in-person immersive research experience. It's still an immersive research experience, but it's just going to be all remote this year. So we have, we do the experiments, but the students are great at helping us with data analysis, image analysis, interpretation of results, etc. Looking out, what's coming up next for the next quarter, in July, we start conducting experiments with dispersed oil. So far, we just did copepod experiments with slick oil, where we didn't add dispersants. Now we gonna add dispersants, disperse the oil, and creating a cloud of oil droplets that slowly migrates down a water column. And we're gonna see what's the impact if copepods experience not just dissolved oil, PAHs, etc., but also droplets of oil that are in the size that's typically typical for their food, what they eat. That's gonna be starting in July. We're gonna measure droplet size distribution and total oil concentration, and to make it transferable to field situation. Then we know what we have. And then for August, September, go to the next year, we're gonna start our experiments where we stratify a water column. We did some tests earlier this year to make a radiant or 2-meter water column, where we now have 2 separate water parcels, one at the top and one at the bottom, and we're going to investigate how the copepods behave in such a situation. Quickly, a slide about the timeline. I just marked that our project has like 3 phases. Phase 1 is pretty much done, except we have some synthesis to do that's scheduled for July. Phase 2 is the dispersed oil. As I said, this is going to be happening in July. And phase 3, the stratification, is scheduled for August, September. And that we are on track with this one here. And with this, I want to end here and just open the floor for comments, reflections, or questions. Thank you.
Christoph, thank you so much. So folks, the lines are open. You're welcome to chat, you're welcome to text, you're welcome to email, you're welcome just to use a microphone. So whatever works for you, works for us. Christoph, I have one text question. This is a, ask you on a text I'll offer you regarding how do you see an application of this into a commercial entity? Is there any commercial application research you're working on?
Yes, thanks for the question. So what the outcome of our project is going to be a knowledge product to inform at what stage during the year or during the copepods they're sensitive to dispersant application. In one of the earlier slides, I had kind of like a spatial distribution of copepods. If we start mapping the cones of copepods with overlapping with potential use of dispersants, we hope that our information can help informing if they are critical times in the year where copepods would be negatively affected. And on the flip side, if there are phases where copepods and all the other lower members of the food chain in the ocean wouldn't really be impacted significantly.
Okay, thank you. See if how that responds to the question. I got a thumbs up, so thank you, Christoph. I have another texted question that I'll have to look back to Jessica Guerin afterwards, and so I think I've lost Jessica, so I'll have to, for the question regarding the community partners Uniclete, I just didn't catch this earlier, my apologies. We'll run that to ground who the community partners are for this project, and I'll provide that for the record, just so I refer to that. So I appreciate that
I'm
question
still here.
as well. Oh, Jessica, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I saw you dropped off. So if you could just respond, I just didn't see this earlier. Who are the community partners you have in Uniclete? I just didn't catch this earlier, my apologies.
Oh, we're working with the native village of Uniclete itself. Specifically, our POC is a gentleman named John Henry, who is currently their IGAP NALIMP coordinator. He's going to be actually moving up in the ranks in the tribal organization, and so we'll have actually a broader access to a pool of folks. But we are planning on inviting a number of individual members of the community through his connections and his identification, but we've already identified members of the public works teams that actually are manning the tank farms and other infrastructure, as well as their local VPSO, a village public safety officer. There's other members of the environmental team of the native village of Uniclete and a high school teacher. Those are the initial folks that we have identified that we are going to invite to our kickoff webinar to determine like who's in. However, that is not an exclusive or exhaustive list at this time of the folks out there that we're going to be asking to join us. We also are going to be contacting the overarching organization, COARIC, which is a native organization for the entire Norton Sound region, and ask if they have a few representatives that they want to participate in the program through their own funding mechanisms. I hope that answers your question.
I'll wait for an answer back, but thank you for that, Jessica. I'm grateful for that. And Christoph, I want to say thanks to you. I just saw one other question, but it's pretty much a correlate. No, actually, the response was, thank you, Christoph, for that update. I appreciate it. So no further questions for Arctic Copause. And I don't have any further updates for the UAS project. So we're all caught up here, I think, administratively at this point. Christoph, thank you for the reflections here. I'd like to now transition, again, continuing just to run tight, but we'll get caught up in time. We have oil spill modeling for improved response to Arctic maritime spills. The path forward. Dr. Nancy Kinner, the University of New Hampshire Coastal Response Research Center, Center for Spills and Environment. Dr. Kinner, ma'am, I give you the floor.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me, Church?
Loud and clear. Loud and clear. Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, well, okay. Well, thank you, everyone. I will try to figure out why you can't see this screen, and we'll try again here. Share content. Share. Let's start again. Can you?
It's coming up now.
Can you see something now?
It says Nancy Kinner starting to share content, and now is up.
Perfect. Well, thank you, everyone. I have with me today Megan Verfai, who is one of the students on the project. Megan is a master's student, and she's going to share the presentation with me. We're going to update you on this oil spill modeling project. So, Megan, take it away.
Excellent. Thank you, Nancy. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
Awesome. So for those that are unfamiliar with the project, we just want to give a brief little bit of background, so I apologize to those who have heard this before. But just some important key people for this project. Our champion is Captain Kirsten Trago. Nancy Kinner is our project principal investigator. And then we have this, I won't read them out to you, but our project core team, who has been involved since the very beginning and have continued to meet monthly throughout the project. And they've really been instrumental in guiding the needs and goals of this project from the beginning and then as we move forward into our next phases. So we can go to the next slide. So just an overview of what our goal is that we want to provide a structured approach to gather expert advice from as many different perspectives as we can to help develop oil spill models that will address the U.S. Coast Guard Federal On-Scene Coordinator needs during Arctic spill response. So one of the things that makes this project is unique is that we have this focus on Arctic response as opposed to just overall oil spill response. So we want to figure out what the needs are for functional effective models that focus on the response timescale, not necessarily a damage assessment timescale. We're looking at that shorter time period that can really help inform decision making during spills. So what we're trying to do is look at all the different state-of-the-art oil spill models as well as ice models and how they're integrated and how they might be better integrated into oil spill models to really start figuring out where those needs are and where those gaps are and how we can start working towards improving that interoperability between them. So the project outcome will be this knowledge product, which is really just a comprehensive report that will delineate all these characteristics of Arctic spill response in order to help make models that will improve this daily response planning and decision making. So we can go to the next slide. So there are 6 phases to this project. 3 of them are complete and 1 is ongoing. We've been very, very fortunate that COVID-19 has not really affected our progress. We've been able to continue on with our meetings remotely as scheduled. So our current phase is phase 4, where we've developed these working groups following the workshop we held in December 2019. And these working group meetings are ongoing currently via remote teleconferencing. So we can go to the next slide. So on these working groups, all the invitations went out to participants in this 2019 workshop, both those who were invited and could attend and those who were not able to attend the actual workshop, as well as different people who were suggested during the workshop or by our core team. We have a great breadth of experienced individuals on these groups, so we're very fortunate for that. We began meeting in March of 2020. They meet every 3 weeks through mid-October, which is when we'll hold our next phase, which is a 2-day workshop to synthesize the findings of all these working groups. And here I've listed out all the different groups we have. There are 4 of them, but Nancy will give specifics as to the progress of each of these groups. So I believe if we go to the next slide, I'll hand it back over to Nancy.
Thanks, Megan. So there, as mentioned, Megan mentioned, there are 4 working groups. The first one is think about small scale, or what we call sub-grid scale types of processes. And one of the key things that we found at the workshop was that the ice modelers are not really talking to the oil spill modelers, etc. So there isn't a lot of cross fertilization, but there really needs to be, because what makes oil spill modeling in the Arctic very unique is the ice, the presence of ice, whether it's frazzle ice or under ice roughness. All of those things are so important to the fate of the oil and the transport of the oil in the Arctic environment. So this group really is looking at that small subgrid scale or meter scale and trying to think about what kind of outputs from the existing ice models that are at that scale could be form oil spill models. Okay, and so what we're doing is bringing in most of the modelers for oil spill models and having them interact and hear presentations and ask questions of the folks who are doing these ice models. So we've already heard from the Los Alamos Labs ice pack team. Next week, I think it is, we hear from CICE. We're going to hear from HIOMAS, which ADAC was involved with and funded. We're going to be hearing from NOAA's National Weather Service and their integrated unified forecasting system models, and also from SynTef on their SynMod model, and some others. So I'm not going to bore you with all of them, but it's been a good interaction so far, and we're learning a lot. The second group looks at a larger scale, kind of the kilometer or grid scale. And here, again, we're trying to figure out what the state of the art of these ice models is, and how they might help interface and impact the way oil spill models work with transport algorithms, storage algorithms for under ice, etc. And so what this group is doing is looking specifically at algorithms or equations, ways of expressing in the model certain things. For instance, how does the oil spread on the surface if there's ice and the oil is spreading in leads, for example? How does the coverage of a lot of ice, a maximum threshold of ice, to a minimum threshold of ice, and the areas in between, how do these algorithms deal with that? And now we're talking about degradation, for example. We've finished the discussions on spreading and that kind of thing. Now we're on to degradation. So we're trying to understand what the different oil spill models do, and then how could ice models at this larger kilometer scale inform how those equations are dealt with, those algorithms are dealt with, etc. So we're really, again, interested in what kinds of parameters could be coming out of these ice ocean models that aren't being used in oil with this. And these customer partner roundtables ended up having a great find for us last quarter, the quarter 3. Dr. Heinrich Tolman of NOAA's National Weather Service was on, and that made a great link with us. And Heinrich and his colleagues are now interacting on a few of our work groups and with their coupled ice ocean atmosphere models. The next group, oops, which is not going. The next group is on new and existing technologies for observing ice and informing models. So in this particular group, we are talking and have participation by AUS, the Alaska Ocean Observing System group. They have a lot of data. We're trying to be sure that their data is being incorporated into and easily compatible with the existing oil spill models that are able to operate in the Arctic. And we're also thinking about what technologies are out there, not only new technologies like marine-induced polarization and LRAV, but even existing technologies. So we're thinking about the satellites, we're thinking about airborne sensors, we're thinking about on-ice sensors, under-ice sensors that can look at the under-ice surface as well as what's in the water column, and seafloor mounted. And so we've been making this wonderful spreadsheet of the different technologies that are available, and it has been really interesting to find out what's existing and what kind of scales they operate on, and what kinds of information they provide that oil spill modelers were not aware of. And actually, many of us are finding out, whoa, this is what's available that the Japanese have, et cetera, et cetera. Group is on visualization and uncertainty, and that group started out, as I mentioned last time, thinking about what do the people who are actually responding to oil spills want to know about uncertainty. And most of the modelers were assuming, oh, we should be giving like 95% confidence intervals and this and that. But when the discussions actually started to happen with the FOS, with the Federal On-Scene Coordinators and the oil spill modelers, we found out that really they're much more interested in kind of a qualitative confidence level than a quantitative one. And that has some real implications for how oil spill modelers might construct some of the visualization and the information that their models output. And obviously, we're very interested in what data could reduce the uncertainty. So we've heard from several of the existing oil spill modelers like Blossom and DHI from over in Europe, RPS, NOAM, and now we're hearing from the folks from Canada about what their oil spill models do with uncertainty and visualizing that uncertainty. So though that group is continuing on.
Thank you, Nancy. So just very briefly to give an update on what the fellows as part of this project are doing. I'm the graduate level fellow on this project, but we also have Jessica Manning, who's an undergraduate fellow on the project. She's currently participating in her Arctic Summer Intern program, so she couldn't be with us today. But Jess is working on an independent research project as part of her participation with ASIP to define available and desired ice characteristics that will be able to improve oil spill models in the Arctic. So she's looking at things like ice distribution and thickness, under ice storage capacity, and reviewing those file formats and the time required to incorporate this data during a response. And that actually goes quite well with what my independent research project is this summer, which is trying to draft a section of the final knowledge product that will help define the specific characteristics that each oil spill model has. So Jess is looking at ice models and I'm looking at oil spill models to try and really pull together some of this knowledge we've gained throughout the project and organize it in a way that can be a reference for both ice modelers and oil spill modelers to look at their inputs, look at all these questions we've had, and figure out how they can really mesh together a little more easily. So if we go to the next slide. This is our last, so I believe we're happy to take any questions at this time. Nancy, I don't know if you have any final comments before that, but that's all I have.
Nope,
Thank you.
We'd love to have feedback and tell us what we're missing or how we can improve or, you know, who we should. So happy to answer questions.
The lines are open. I do have one question that's already come in to me via text. Nancy, and to Megan, the question is, your project's setting the stage, this is the quote, your project is setting the stage for future research. Do you anticipate a next chapter of this research that you would be leading to address what you've learned through this current research?
Yes, I think that there will be obviously, this research is not going to produce a lot of the interfaces and those kinds of things that would be needed. But I think there definitely will have to be follow-on work. And in fact, Church and his team have already been asking us what do we think might be needed in the future. But they're definitely, this is not going to produce models that are able to do everything. There's going to have to be some steps to get there. But really, it's trying to find out what do we need and what's out there. One of the interesting things, for example, is that initially we thought everybody was dealing with spreading differently. It turns out the oil spill modelers who are working in the Arctic are not dealing with spreading any differently. They're all using basic same algorithm. And the only difference really is when they say, oh, it's full ice cover. Is that at 80% ice cover or is it at 75? Or when are we at assuming minimal ice cover and everything behaves as open water? And is that 20% ice cover or is that 25? So these are the kinds of things we're finding out. And we also looked at, well, what kind of thing could we do? Could we get a better spreading equation? And the answer is really at this point, a better spreading equation isn't the problem. It's getting some of the measurements of what's out there that would really help better. So these are the kinds of things we're trying to delve into and get a list of recommendations. And then the next phase would be trying to put those together.
Thank you, Nancy. I got a thumbs up from that remark just in. I have another question in on chat privately where does any of the modeling efforts you're reviewing or underway in your project plan to integrate within Arctic IRMA from either a data information system vantage point? Now, I know that we in the Arctic Ocean Modeling Project from before was focused on NOAA's general operational, the GNOME modeling enterprise, the general NOAA operational modeling enterprise. But is any of the work that you have, the modeling efforts, integrate with Arctic IRMA? Over.
Yeah. Yes. So the key thing there would be the outputs of the models being able to go into Arctic IRMA. And so with respect to visualization, that is one of the things actually specifically Arctic IRMA and a few other visualization tools are mentioned in our to-do list to investigate. So yes, we anticipate thinking about what kinds of outputs can come from these different models that would be able to go seamlessly into Arctic IRMA.
Great, thank you. At this point, I'd like to say thank you, Dr. Kinner and Randolph. I'm grateful for your reflections here. If you could stop sharing screen, Nancy, we'll queue up for our next discussion. Again, if there are other questions that come up, as I mentioned in previous discussions, always happy to take your questions, your follow-up, anything you have for us. We try to be very responsive to any questions or concerns, and our team will be happily shepherding any questions regarding this particular project back to Dr. Kinner and her experts there at the University of New Hampshire. So, Dr. Kinner, thank you for your discussion. We're grateful.
Thank you, Church.
We are tight on time here a little bit still because we know that Professor Kulia is getting ready to take the stage here, and she has another meeting to tackle here just within the half hour. So I would not, I'll just do a quick setup saying, first of all, the flagship program of the center continues to be the propeller-driven long-range autonomous underwater vehicle system, or LRAV. This project, of course, is jointly conducted between Dr. James Bellingham and Amy Kukulia and their team of the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, along with Brett Hobson and his team at Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute in Bari. The day-to-day lead for getting things done for this project continues to be Professor Kukulia. She continues to make a significant difference in project managing and project advancement, research in the field, et cetera. Just tremendous amount of work that Amy has on her shoulders, and she does such an exceptional job of moving this project in a remarkable, useful way. We're just excited about how far the program has come. We're certainly looking forward to an incredible program year 7. Will include, of course, the fabrication of our second platform and more. So let me give the floor to Amy and for you to take away. I know you're tight on time, so you've got the mic, you've got the floor, and I'm happy to help you in any way possible. Amy?
All right. Thanks, Church, and good afternoon, good morning, everyone. We're about a month out from the annual meeting, and I think most of the people on the horn here attended that meeting. I had about a 50-slide deck, so I don't want to regurgitate too much of the granular details of what I portrayed last month, but I did want to, the approach I want to take for the 15 minutes we have together was to give the high-level overview of what we accomplished in year 6, where we're going in year 7, and then I wanted to, really want to spend some time for discussion operating within the ConOps that the team, the LRAV team, including executive team at ADAC, produced and shared with our partners. And so I wanted to address questions and concerns and any comments and leave enough time for that instead of me taking up all the air in this talk. So first of all, it's been a really exciting year 6. I think year 7 is going to be even a bigger sprint. I'm going to go all the way back to last June, which was technically year 5. So last June, we were able to deploy Polaris, so LRAV system number 1 for this program, in the Santa Barbara SEEPs. That was our first time an opportunity deploying the system with its onboard adaptive mapping capability and the Sea Owl EcoPuck sensor, and also our Arctic buoy system to be able to simulate for the first time ever for this platform the ability to go to stay under the ice, if you will. And what that means in Santa Barbara in open water was we needed to be able to navigate and communicate to a level of sending heat maps and informative data back to command and control without surfacing. So that was a huge milestone for us back in June, and also to there's nothing like taking your technology, developing the sensors and the mechanical platform and the core platform, if you will, but then operating within a real world oil environment. As most people on this line know, there's no such oil slick that is ever the same. So we always have a lot to learn every time we deploy the system. So there in Santa Barbara was no different. The Santa Barbara SEEPs, I see Lisa DePinto who's on the line. She can back me up here. You need to know a lot more about the environment besides that there's just oil there. So I think that's what's really great about the autonomous underwater vehicles is that they do carry a suite of sensors. And so this particular platform has the up and down ADCP. So we're able to get water currents above and below the vehicle, and also to be able to get bottom tracking. And that's really important in the ice as well, by having the upward looking ADCP to be able to track and navigate itself relative to ice. So in regards to that, also tracking the currents and being able to predict from an autonomous perspective where the vehicle should go if it's not sensing oil. So you can program the vehicle ahead of time and tell it to go here and there, but you need adaptive sampling to be able to have the vehicle be smarter than the person who originally programmed it. So that's a lot of what we've been working on, and that's why it's really key for us to deploy these vehicles in a real world environment, outside the labs and Buzzards Bay, Woods Hole, and in test tanks. So we're really looking forward to potentially having more of those opportunities. So then in August, we went back to Santa Barbara, and this was actually really exciting because I would say that this was kind of a mock oil spill response. So we brought Polaris back, upgraded a bunch of the tracking behaviors, and then we also went out on the George Cobb, courtesy of collaboration between NOAA, led by Lisa's team, and EPA, Robin Cobney and Bessie, and of course our friends of the Coast Guard, including Toulis and Kirsten Trago. So we had a bunch of systems on board the Cobb, the George Cobb in Santa Barbara, being the the expensive platform carrying every sensor, a lot of sensors and capabilities, from drones to vehicles to dipsticks, and driving this boat around to find out where the oil was to respond to it. And so what LRAV did, and it was a utility that we showed to be able to launch that vehicle pier side without the use of a ship, and to have it swim out over the oiled area, and to map out the area and find where the oil was, but also where it wasn't. And so it's just another really important example to show that what the power of a long range AUV is, and the utility that has. And so instead of this ship driving around, looking for sometimes a needle in the haystack, which those hot spots in Santa Barbara can tend to be that, depending on what the weather's doing, the currents are doing. So that was a big exercise that was more than deploying the vehicle and getting some more mileage on it, but understanding how to work as a team and what a response might look like, and how to think in an oil spill scenario. So that was really cool. So from there, we were shifting gears to develop more of our real under ice capabilities. So we're gearing up, of course, for New England under ice op, and then going to the Great Lakes. And ahead of COVID, Mother Nature did not cooperate. We didn't have a lot of ice to work with. We did identify this little lake called Bog Lake, and we were able to, first time ever, deploy the Polaris and an LRAV vehicle under ice. And we actually did something that no AUV has ever done before, and that's dynamically dock under ice, which is a huge feat. And actually, the team is really proud of that, Hui and Mbari, all around, and how challenging and difficult that is. So we were able to, again, complete that round trip pipeline of information to be able to nav relative to these buoys that we built, but also to be able to use it as like a docking station and park itself, attach itself to the buoy and hang out there for some whatever determined time necessary to wait for instructions to upload its data, and hopefully sometime in the future to be able to inductively charge itself and stay out for longer periods of time. Another huge milestone, of course, is that this platform, everybody, I think a lot of questions around the ConOps in terms of like, what is command control? How easy is it to operate, to learn the learning curve of operating this vehicle? So I want to spend a little bit of time now talking about that relative to, there's 12 of these vehicles, and they've all been operated out of Mbari. And Mbari's done a really interesting job, a really great job actually, of making this propeller-driven vehicle more of an over-the-horizon platform. So what that means is that if any of you are familiar with gliders, you launch a glider, it could be out for weeks to months, upwards of 6 months sometimes. And so you basically have a couple people to kick the vehicle over the side of a ship. You can launch it from shore. And then all that information that you get back from the vehicle is through a Rubrix Iridium data pipeline. So you choose how often you want your glider to come up to the surface, makes a call, sends you back data to a website. Anybody in the world can access that. So I just want to be clear when I say command control, that's up to what the end user wants, right? All this data goes up to a website. Right now it's lrav.hui.edu. And that data pipeline could point to anywhere. So command control can be in your living room, or your backyard, or wherever you may want it. So that's important just to note. And then so that's the mode of operation that LRAV has. So more of a glider remote operation platform, which is fantastic when you think of who's going to be operating this, because the more experienced people, something were to go wrong, that person can be located anywhere. And I don't foresee this platform being something that you need a PhD to operate. I see it more as creating a really large network of operators who will learn there's like a Chinese menu of missions that you can open up and choose. And I'd say, high percentage of the time the vehicle will do what it needs to do. And what happens is the vehicle will send a text message, even if it's under ice. It can go through the buoy network, send some sort of data packet through some radio. You get that in text message form, and you label that as some sort of critical message. And this is already laid out in the system, and it can decide who to wake up. So what happened in our sense was the training of the platform and the transition of that platform, because we're literally have just done this from Mbari to Woods Hole. We're the first other operators of this platform, and there is a little bit of a learning curve there, and so which is okay. Obviously, there has to be, and I consider myself an expert AUV operator. I work on a platform that's been commercialized now for over 20 years. So LRAV is about 10 years old, not commercialized. But one of the things that I've taken on with this project and this system is to be able to make the experience of the operator as easy as possible. So that's one of the components. The year 7 is to work on what we call like a backseat autonomy and a backseat operator experience, to be able to have these mission macros laid out where you know ahead of time what this vehicle is supposed to be doing, and it maps itself out, and you can pre-program what you want to do. But most of the time, you can also imagine when you launch an AUV, you might not know what you want to do, when you launch it, or something might change, it might detect something. So there's a lot of intellect built into the platform for you to be able to change your mind and change your mission. And everything is absolutely programmable and modular in that regard. And as we're doing all this and working on Platform 1 Polaris and actually really undergoing this transition and this training here at Woods Hole, there's now 6 of us who have been trained up, which actually doubles the operator workforce. And so now MBARI and Woods Hole both remotely operate these LRAV platforms from either what we call dashboard. And in parallel to those efforts, we're also building a second platform. We call her Stella. And it's she's kind of Frankenstein, and there's over 1,000 parts been coming into Woods Hole because of COVID. Of course, we've been impacted like everybody else. So we shifted gears a little bit to focus more on what we can accomplish and bite off relative to the year 7 work plan, which is really upgrading and upping the ante on what LRAV can do. So we have dynamic docking, we have acoustic communications and oil detection, backseat autonomy. We also, now we're going to be implementing an inertial navigation system and a multi-beam sonar. So we put a great amount of effort in these last couple of months to designing that system and have parts on order. And we're happy to report that we'll have a second platform. And I think it's been referred to as a second capability. I would argue that we have a lot more than 2 capabilities and dozens of different capabilities with the sensor packages on board. And we're trying to make those platforms as modular as possible. And by modular, I also want to emphasize that one of the sweet spots of operating between the MBARI and Huey relationship is that we have a huge amount of assets in vehicle form, but also in sensor form, and integration of sensors, which you can imagine writing drivers and behaviors and integration for different sensors can be very costly. So we have a huge pool of assets that we developed this relationship thanks to this project and this investment to give greater access and swath of capability to a larger customer set. So that also builds on the investment from our friends at Bessie and NOAA, with help from EPA to help develop water sampling systems, and then also things like the holographic camera, and any other types of sensors that get spun out of different programs that just help build on what we're all trying to achieve here in ADAC and beyond ADAC. So I'm really excited to report that. So we're gonna just to sum up, there's always so much to talk about, but to sum up, in year 7, we are I'm trying to really get LRAV as many miles as possible in all kinds of different environments to be able to help develop, like to build the software development capability at Woods Hole. That doesn't happen overnight. So we our vehicle, which we've been operating, we've had 3 big trips around the clock for a total of 3 weeks here at Woods Hole since March. And we're prepping the vehicle, upgrading the CTD system and dissolved oxygen sensors. And we'll be, hopefully, if all goes well, be going on a cruise with this vehicle end of August to map out these salt intrusion lines and squid intrusion, if you will, as part of an NSF effort. And so it's good. LRAV is going to play another role where we're going to have a research vessel filled with vehicles and towed systems and acoustics, actually active and passive acoustic systems. And we want to be able to find the upwelling and thermocline and salt intrusion line off the continental shelf to be able to track where squid are migrating. And so we're going to deploy LRAV and have it be the mobile CTD, if you will, to survey a large area ahead of time and through the entire cruise to help inform where to deploy the other assets. So that really excited about that capability to get it out in open ocean and also get more experience and train more people. So that those opportunities will be key for that. Then to get people to buy in more into this platform. And so in year 7, we'll have the second platform built. We'll be upgrading the buoys and doing some modifications to improve the battery duration. And we have a lot of tests to do to determine the acoustic range of the entire network of buoys and vehicles included. We're going to be hopefully doing at least two under ice tests. The first one will be in a New England site that'll be a larger lake than the one that we operated in. I mean, you have to remember we only had 3 days, on the ice when it all came when it all came together. So we need more time there, and then we will also be aiming to go into Lake Superior in March to test the system in kind of a more of an Arctic, realistic Arctic environment. And then, of course, lots of transitions meetings planned. And in the end, we want to be able to get up to the Arctic. I think there's some TBD dates and logistical planning on what makes the most sense for some things that are unknown and out of our hands. So I'm going to stop there. I kind of wind myself up here and I have a hard time talking about this project, but I want to leave a few minutes for discussion.
Thank you, Amy, for that great recap. And one thing that I just relay, and I haven't had a chance simply to relay to the team yet, but there may be an alternative to Lake Superior testing that we're just had a brief discussion with our colleagues at the Ice Paper Enterprise, and I need to get the details run to ground and forward to you, the team. But an alternative to Lake Superior may be an opportunity to work with U.S. Office of Naval Research and with Canada for a possibility of the Great Slave Lake and ice camp. Those folks would have a Joint Task Force Yellowknife, Joint Task Force North and Yellowknife in the Northwest Territories. So again, we're going to run that to ground and get some details to you, Amy, and to Jim and to Brett. But one of the things that this is where the collaboration Ice Paper has potentially great opportunity in relationship for providing us an alternative to Lake Superior. And again, details to run the ground, but that's the nice thing about the long range planning gives us an opportunity to do course of action evaluation here. I do have one question that's been posed, and this is probably one that Jim Bellingham probably already knows the answer to, but it is for the sake of discussion. Amy, do you have any, do you know if your team has any detailed conversation with the Office of Naval Research's AMOS team by some chance? AMOS?
AMOS, is this the Arctic buoy system that's out there?
Let me double check.
Yeah.
Commander Woods, by chance, are you able to visit?
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's the Arctic Mobile Observing System group. It's PI'd out of University of Washington.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah, another acronym. Yeah, so it's interesting. There is a REMIS. So when this project, the PIs out of Washington State came to Woods Hole, and the main PI on the Woods Hole side is this guy, Lee Freitag, who actually started the acoustic communications group at Woods Hole, and that's the acoustic system we have on all of our vehicles. He came to me to ask me about using LRAV for this project, and at the time I said, our assets are going to be completely eaten up from our project, and they will be. So I said the low risk option would be to use a REMIS 600. At the time, the ONR had just released a whole bunch of vehicles that didn't have like ADCPs and any real sensors on them. And so I think there's a couple of vehicles at Woods Hole that are being upgraded. And actually, they're kind of riding on our coattails a bit with the under ice docking capability and some of the work that we're doing. But they're going to be deploying, I think, for some tests. They're supposed to go in September, but I think that's been delayed. But they're literally in the lab next door to us at Woods Hole. So we're not directly tied into it, but we're neighbors right now.
Thanks, Amy.
Yeah.
Thanks for the question, John. I realize that, Amy, you have another
Yeah,
seat I think starts like in a
5
minute.
minutes. Yeah, I'm on. Yeah.
So let me just say, let me take a look actually in text here real quick. So anything you can answer quickly. Actually, hang on a second here. Okay, I have one question for you in text. I didn't see this until just now. The LRAP project is remarkable. What do you see as a commercial operational activity, perhaps with the oil spill response organization, the OSROs?
Yeah. So in terms of, I guess that's a loaded question in the sense of transition to operations and transition to platform. So I'm assuming this person's asking about transition of commercialization of the platform.
Yeah, this question certainly, and I'm going to help you with this question. So I just saw it there. So I appreciate the question. So thank you, colleague. So strategically, part of the transition activities in program year 7, and then ultimately we'll probably also conduct it in program year 8. And this is regarding the activities for this project. That's something we'll be working with. The ADAC will be working with Hui and Mbari, but really all of us collectively working with Headquarters U.S. Coast Guard and the project champion to find out what answer is really best. We put a lot of work into the development of the year 7 work plan to hit this. And so for our question here, once we get this, the approval for the year 7 plan, we'll post the work plan so you can see all the commercial steps towards commercialization activities that we plan to do, but it really be focused on what's the best answers to support the U.S. Coast Guard. And so it's a long conversation, frankly. So it's a great question, but it's one that I think we need to just give a placeholder. Take a look at the year 7 plan for commercialization activities that we're starting upon. Please know that in this next year, we're going to be doing a lot of discussion with Headquarters U.S. Coast Guard on this matter. And then lastly, what we don't finish in program year 7 on this aspect, we'll certainly continue in program year 8. So I'm going to call that the placeholder. I just got a thumbs up. So
yeah, I mean, I'm thinking about operations transition. The commercial platform isn't actually, it's not on my plate. I haven't been thinking about it. Bellingham and the head of Mbari have discussions on that. That is certainly something we should table and talk about later.
Great. So Amy, let me say thank you. Great recap. Thanks for that question, and thanks for the thumbs up in saying, okay, some more to follow on this. Amy, I do have a follow-up with you later on regarding the question we have from our colleagues at the Office of Naval Research.
Yeah, I can address, I did run through that, and I think you did a good job of answering most of them. I think Alex at RDC had tons of questions about testing sensors and tanks. And of course, we did do that with the CL and our holographic camera, did that with Lisa and EPA, Robin. Always up for, we wrote a little bit of time into our year 7 proposal to be able to go back up to New Hampshire to calibrate whatever sensors we have that are useful. So, the end user, like folks at NOAA and EPA and elsewhere, are happy with the sensor choices. And so I'll just do what I'm told there and what people need and want. So always checking that box.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much, Amy. Thanks to the work you do. We'll follow up with you later. And I'm going to now transition with a virtual round of applause for your discussion to Dr. Marcus Boyd. Again, we're just running behind.
Thanks,
here.
Everybody.
Thank you again, Amy. Well
Bye.
done. Bye-bye. Dr. Boyd, I see you there. Again, apologies for running late, but it's for all the right reasons.
Absolutely.
At this point, we're on Dr. Marcus Boyd, who's sprinting through the tape on Arctic All Hazards GIS platform. Dr. Boyd's coming to us, of course, and then finishing 2 great years of exceptional work at the University of Maryland, part of the START Fellow Center of Excellence. They're hosted by the University of Maryland. It's the Emeritus Center. And doing great work in an emeritus status. And certainly Dr. Boyd has been a great member of the ADAC team and will continue to leverage his talents in the coming year as we run additional tasks from this, but incorporating those under the geofencing project which has been approved, frankly, and I'm glad for that. So Dr. Boyd, sorry, I give you the floor for to recap on where we're at, where we're headed for Arctic All Hazard GIS platform. The floor is yours,
Sure,
sir.
absolutely. So to give a recap to everyone, our project has, sorry, as Church has been said, has been going on for 2 years, and we are close to finishing. Our goal at the start was to basically build on current or previous capabilities. So things like the Arctic Information Fusion capability, and then Arctic IRMA. Some of the instantiation of this was D17's interest in having their own application that they would be able to control access to. They would be able to input their own data and then disseminate those data to whoever they would need to. Excuse me 1 second. Sorry about that. We've also been interested in really what makes a good GIS web application. We're all familiar with them. Some of them range from truly terrible to really fantastic and super friendly to use. And there's been a lot of work in web interfaces and user experience writ large, but when it comes to things like something like a web GIS, there hasn't been as much work done in this. So we wanted to see, well, what can we do? And so that was during the first year of the project, we focused a lot on that. And then we took those lessons learned and we used that to develop our application. So currently, we are functionally done with the project. We are presently only waiting on getting the NAIS data implemented into the application. I just had a meeting with some folks from the Coast Guard yesterday on achieving that goal. We are, I believe, very close to that, and everyone who was a part of the meeting feels similarly. We are working with the Geospatial Management Office, so the DHS Geospatial Management Office houses the Geospatial Information Infrastructure, which in sort of layman's terms is a ArcGIS online platform. So we've been able to create our application natively into that. And what we're waiting on now is to basically formalize the MOU between Coast Guard and the GMO's office to start pumping the AIS data into the application. Once that's done, it will be a fully functioning application that meets the current requirements. But that being said, we are interested in what kind of future capabilities would be possible. And that's sort of where I've started to turn my attention. Since it is an ArcGIS online application, there are a variety of avenues that we can pursue. And so I'm beginning to sort of conceptualize that, write about that, and then put those forward. And then, as Church said, we are working with the geofencing project, which I believe goes later today, to attempt to integrate the two of them. And that should not be an issue because we do, since we're on an ArcGIS Online environment, we have things like the GeoEvent server that we can pull in and use, and quite easily do things like geofencing. So our go live date for the application is to be determined, and it's based on getting the AIS data. Once that is completed, I look forward to our future outcomes. That's basically it. So if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I did try to move through a bit more quickly than planned.
Dr. Boyd, thank you. I'm looking through the text right now and looking through the emails. And oh, here we are. One question in text. So Dr. Boyd, I've been tracking your project for a while. Thanks to the work you're doing. We understand, as I understand it, your last step in this project is getting the AIS data operational.
Right.
Is this aspect, once that is operational, is there any further work you plan to do in year 7? Great. Thank you for the question, by the way.
So there is a bunch of work that I would like to do, but currently, as far as I'm aware, unfunded. So it's it's there on the table, and there are various things that I would like to do, like implementing some of the other applications and capabilities that are native to ArcGIS Online that I think would be helpful for things like situational reporting, situational awareness. And I'm happy to share those in more detail. Those are written up in the final report for the project as well. I imagine ADAC is happy to share that as well.
Yes, and I thank you for that, Dr. Boyd. And actually, what I'll do is this case here that I will do a follow-up with you afterwards based on the nature of this question to see if there's a way we could engage our project, the project champion, and realistically also our program manager at DHS to see if there's any way that we can incorporate some of your other ideas based on the report that you're developing now. So we'll call this a placeholder for now, Dr. Boyd. I do want you to know that the work you've been doing is just exceptional. We're grateful for that. And if there's a way we can get to yes in answering that very important question in a way that also that fits with your research and efforts and activities, I'd like to try to find a way to yes there.
Absolutely. And just to close out with everyone, I do want to say that the transition model that we've put together, working with the Geospatial Management Office and developing within DHS systems, has been a fantastic experience, and one that I definitely, for the researchers on the call, I recommend replicating as much as possible, and for the project champions and other components, it is an underutilized resource right now, and it has been truly fantastic, and I have had no negative experiences with anyone on the DHS GMO team, so I do recommend them.
Dr. Boyd, thank you for that. We will do follow-up. So my colleagues on the line, you'll be hearing more from Dr. Boyd as we look into this activities for opportunities in program year 7 for us. I think there's great value to that question. I appreciate getting it. I appreciate Dr. Boyd's answer. So more to follow on this. I'll call this a placeholder remark for now. At this point, I would like to transition and thank a virtual round of applause to Dr. Boyd.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to now take a moment to move towards our photo-enhanced toxicity of dispersed and burned crude oil to Arctic mussels, in short, our Arctic mussels project. I know that Dr. Tomko mentioned that Phoebe was going to be on the line from the University of New Orleans, and I see you there. I saw you come in earlier, Phoebe, so thank you for being on the call here. I'd like to respectfully give you the floor, and welcome.
Thank you. Let me share my screen. Okay, so I am just going to give a recap on the progress we've made so far, and then what I'm doing and what it means to the project. And so the project objectives are basically to determine whether extreme seasonal changes in sunlight exposure can affect toxicity of oil, dispersed oil, and burned oil to Arctic mussels. And we want to use this knowledge to help strategize oil spill response techniques and figure out which technique has the least impact on the environment. And so within this project, there are 4 objectives, and the objectives are listed here, and the ones in green are complete, and then the ones in light red are still in progress. And due to COVID, some of the work has been halted, but we are now in progress with them, and hopefully can finish everything at the end of this year. And so objective 2, real quickly, just looks at the physiological and biochemical responses of the mussels to each treatment as a function of photo exposure. And then objective 3 is looking at metabolomics, and so looking at the health of the mussels, how do they respond to these treatments, and then with the effect of light. And then objective 4 is what I'm going to go over today, and that's my part in this project. And so UNO's task is objective 4, and basically we're characterizing these water-soluble chemical components after each treatment and after each photo period. And with that, it entails 3 different techniques, so analytical techniques. 4, I'm sorry. And so the first one is looking at the dissolved organic carbon. That's basically what oil is photodissolved into the water and what the carbon content of each of those water samples are, within the 4 treatments, and then as a function of photoperiod, using optical spectroscopy, specifically 3-dimensional optical spectroscopy, to look at the changes in fluorophores and the chromophores that are in the water after these treatments, and then utilizing statistical analyses called parallel factor analysis, or PARAFAC, to basically break down the data into something that we can interpret and understand these changes. And then lastly, utilizing ultra-high resolution mass spectrometry to obtain molecular level information of the water. Because again, the water is basically a complex mixture of numerous different sources. So oil, seawater, whatever the mussels are giving off. And so it's going to have a lot of compounds in there. And I'm going to go into it a little bit later of why we need it, but it's just an important technique for complex mixture analysis. And so the research progress, basically what we're doing is, so the dissolved organic carbon analyses are complete. The optical spectroscopy is in progress. So I'm actually doing this myself because we just have a skeleton crew over the summer due to COVID. We have about 225 samples. So working on them, I can do probably about 12 a day. And then the ultra high resolution mass spectrometry is on schedule to be analyzed August of 2020. And so I wanted to give a little bit of background about just the 2 major techniques that we're using, the excitation emission matrix spectroscopy, and then the ultra high resolution mass spectrometry, and how they are applied to this project. So the first one is basically a 3-dimensional technique, and it's a contouring technique of all the different fluorophores and the chromophores that are in the complex mixture. And so it really helps us identify these different fluorescent components, and then with those changes as a function of treatment, we can infer different changes in what's being produced or what's being depleted in the water as each of these treatments are being subjected to sunlight. And so basically you have this contour plot here. And then, so how EAMS works is you can excite at a wavelength of 250 nanometers, and then you collect a spectrum of emission from 240 to 800 nanometers. So you get something like this peak that's shown here. So next you can move to a step of 50 nanometers, so excitation 300 nanometers. And again, you can collect this emission spectra from 240 to 800 nanometers, and you see that this peak has changed. So now you have a different fluorophore that you didn't see from exciting at an earlier wavelength. So then excite 50 nanometers again at 350 nanometers, and again you can see that this fluorophore is completely different from the last 2. And so this is what I'm doing for the ADAC samples. However, rather than 50 nanometer steps, I'm doing 5 nanometer steps. So 5 nanometer steps, collecting each emission spectrum from that, it takes about 30 minutes per sample. So we employ the use of parallel factor analysis because, as you can see here, this is a pretty plot, right? It has all these different colors, and you can see that the emission is in these areas, and you can see the excitation, which is on the x-axis in these areas, but you can't really tell what's really happening just by this plot. So we have to employ a statistical analysis called PARAFAC, which decomposes these EAMS spectra into their underlying components. And so I could take the 225 spectra that I've collected, and then I can basically decompose them into 5 main fluorophore components. And this is a mathematical chromatography, if you will, that leads to identification and quantification of these varying fluorophores. And so this is really good for environmental samples where you don't know what the concentration is of your compounds. You don't know the identity of your fluorophores. And this can give you information regarding the composition of your fluorophores and how they change through this space as a function of each treatment. So dark versus light are going to look completely different in theory than light versus light. So the current, somebody have a question. So the current progress, so the dissolved organic carbon analyses are complete. Again, the optical spectroscopy is in progress, and then the ultra high resolution is on schedule for August 2020. And so I'm going to go into a little bit of the background about the ultra high resolution mass spectrometry and what it is and why we need it. And so if you can see from this plot shown here that you get this spectra from about 220 m/z to about 800 m/z, so mass units. And this is a mass spectra of dissolved organic matter. And so why this technique is so good is if you can see this inset is zoomed in of a 0.3 Dalton window. And within that 0.3 Dalton window, all of these molecular formula and all of these peaks are resolved. And so you can, so for this case, we have 14,000 peaks that are resolved from this technique. And so we're able to resolve and get molecular formula for complex mixture analysis. And so again, just like the EAM spectra, you can't just look at this mass spectrum and know what's happening with your sample. You have to calibrate the data, and then you have to assign the molecular formula based on their m/z. And so with that, you can get these molecular formula, which then can be transformed into these heteroatom content or class distribution graphs. And so you can see here at the bottom left with the orange bars, you have % relative abundance on your y-axis, and then you have your heteroatom distributions on your x-axis. And so here you can get nitrogen with oxygen, sulfur with oxygen, and then your oxygen-containing compounds. And when you're dealing with photochemistry, you always want to look for changes in your oxygenated compounds. And so another way to represent these data is to do a Van Crevelen diagram, which is shown here at the bottom right. And so the Van Crevelen diagram, each dot represents a molecular formula within your sample, and where they land in this Van Crevelen space gives you information about the composition and the classes of these different compounds. For example, this is a Van Crevelen diagram that shows the different regions within this space that can give you information about the types and the classifications of these compounds, so chemical speciation. And so the green here show the aliphatic type compounds. You have unsaturated low shown in yellow. The unsaturated high oxygen containing compounds are shown in blue. The aromatic are shown in dark orange, and then condensed aromatic in black. And so the changes of where these dots lie in this space can tell you information about the types of compounds in your samples. And so this is really good for samples undergoing different treatments, so dark versus light, because you can look for presence or absence, and you'll see that center of mass basically shift from low oxygen to high oxygen in your water samples. Or if you have petroleum samples, you'll see a decrease after photochemistry in your aromatics, and they'll shift into the aliphatic light components. And so it gives you a lot of information about these differences, and you can determine your molecular composition of tens of thousands of different compounds in a single sample. And so what do we expect from these data? Well, for the dissolved organic carbon concentrations, we want to know how much oil is dissolving in the water for each treatment. And does the addition of dispersant or does the addition of herder increase or decrease those carbon concentrations? That's the only really quantification technique that we have. So that gives us information about basically the photodissolution of the carbon from the petroleum into the water. Excitation emission matrix spectroscopy answers the question of the composition of these chromophores that are going into the water and how they change after extended light exposure. And then the parafact statistics will help highlight these changes and basically take all those 225 spectra and then put them into a 5-component or 6-component model that we can then make inferences based on how they move within those classifications. And then the ultra high resolution mass spectrometry tells us the classes of the chemical species that are in the water and how they change as a function of time and treatment. So where we are going, this is the future milestones. So the optical spectroscopy, I should be done collecting and running the parafac by August. I'm sure it's going to be July, but I just wanted to give myself some more time. The ultra high resolution mass spec, I finished extraction of all the samples yesterday. So they're ready to go. We just have to wait on some paperwork so that we can send the samples, and we're sending them to Michigan Tech to run on their instrument up there. The data synthesis will be done by October 2020. So once we get the mass spec, we have the parafac analysis. We're going to converge all of our data from each objective and then make the proper correlations. And then the final reports will be submitted to ADAC November 2020. And that's all I have for you today. I just want to thank all of you for your attention and support, and hearing about your projects is pretty inspiring. And I just want to thank my co-PI and collaborators and all the students who were involved in this project. And I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Phoebe. Great recap and a great focus on the work that you're on point there for this project at the University of New Orleans. I'm looking at the text right now, see if there are any questions. I'm looking at chat and see if there's anything there. So far, I'm not seeing anything right now. And just let me check one other spot just to make sure and do due diligence here. And at this point, Phoebe, I'm not seeing any questions. So let me just say thank you. I gave you a virtual round of applause in this discussion. And so thank you. Well done. I'd like to as we graciously transition from Phoebe to our colleagues in the next project, our marine induced polarization. I'd like to just reflect that we do have in the project or in today's program a 10-minute break that's been planned. We'll probably press right through that based on where we're at this juncture. So we'll just keep on going and try to catch up along the way. At this juncture, we have the marine induced polarization methods for detection mapping oil in an Arctic marine oil spill, including, of course, investigations of oil within and under broken ice. And I'd like to ask for the member, I know there's lots of discussion of who is going to take point for today's marine IP discussion. Art, I see you there on the screen. Is it you or is it Carrie? Is it Kevin? Oh, I see Carrie there. Okay, great. Carrie, you've got the floor. You can bring in the other members of your team as you like. But the screen was a bit compressed, so I didn't see you up there. Professor Carrie Walker at Reduced Polarization Associates. Madam, you've got the floor and take it away.
Thank you so much. And I'd like to share my screen so I can show you our presentation. I know we're pressed on time, so I'm going to try to walk through some stuff pretty quickly. Let's get this. Can you guys see? I'll put it in presentation. Can you guys see that okay?
Yep.
Okay.
Got it up. Yep.
Great. Okay, so just really quick updates of where we've been. And that is, of course, from the past updates that you've gotten. We designed our ice cable. We built and tested and integrated our open water cables. You can see us working out in the field here doing the open water surveys. We built, tested, and integrated our ice cables. We went to Krell and we did both of our baseline as well as our oil under ice testing. You can see here this was our planned implementation, which is how we ended up operating after cutting the holes in the ice. We were able to collect the data that we needed, that we had designed for, though as everyone knows, we did have some difficulties due to the equipment being dropped in shipping on the way there. And so, you know, we show here the system as it is. It's in multiple pieces or parts. So we've got an acquisition system, we've got a laptop, we've got a battery pack, signal generators, a number of different parts to run this system. We have started looking at the data, but we are waiting on our lab analysis. And of course, as everyone knows, our laboratory is still off limits here in Washington. We haven't progressed far enough to be able to get back into our lab. We are currently now looking for new lab space so that we can try to get back and complete our lab analysis so we can complete our data analysis. But in the meantime, we are at least able to perform some signal analysis. So we're not able to apply our calibrations quite yet, but we wanted to show, and I think these were shown very briefly in our past presentation, and I know that they're not really easy to read, but we were very excited to see this because this is two different lines where transects were collected underneath the portions that had oil in ice. And here we were able to see that the signal compressed at the same place that we had the capacitive phase shift. And so you can see here, we've got a positive phase shift in both locations, as well as a compressed signal. So that to us shows us that we were able to see oil under ice, which is very exciting. But we still need to do the lab work to be able to complete the rest of the analysis. And we're continuing to run through the remainder of the lines that were run. Looking forward, for year 7, we have planned to build a ruggedized Arctic-ready marine IP system. The focus of this, of course, is especially emphasized in some of the difficulties that we had in shipping the equipment and some of the experiences we've had at Krell, that we are going to build a more compact system with fewer parts, compressed, kind of compacted into a smaller system that will also be more resistant to some of the rough handling that typically happens in transport. We also will work to develop the new software interface that is more user-friendly. For instance, some of those images where the signal's coming in, we want to be able to develop and build into the software system tools and images where the user would be able to see where those, I guess the analysis could pop out a little bit to the user. So to be able to develop better tools and visualizations built into that software so that as a user is conducting a survey, you'll be able to see, oh, you know, here we're seeing a response, and create clearer visuals for the user to be able to make those calls. We'd also like to be able to return back to Krell to be able to test the new system in that harsh Arctic simulated environment. And that is it for our update. Sorry, I know I tried to run through that pretty quickly, but I also wanted to try to leave time for some questions if possible. So I will open it up for questions.
Thank you, Gary. I appreciate that. Great rundown, recap. I have a couple of remarks to say. It's kind of an additional remarks, and then we'll open it to questions here. First of all, the marine induced polarization team was just an exceptional this year. They've been dealt with some lemons, and they've made some great lemonade out of this. And so a couple things I mentioned real quick is that as we look to program year 7, one of the things we've talked about in our plan, of course, we're waiting final review and approval for the Marine IPs team program year 7 plan, which complements and builds off what they said in 6, and whether we'll be finishing some of the last parts of 6 into 7, but then ultimately moving into what we'd like to do in 7, and that is to be able to create this marine induced polarization ready kit. The idea of a ready kit is something that could be, and as we've gotten from the feedback from Coast Guard so far, is Coast Guards themselves are looking not to actually be the possessors of this material, but really to have the knowledge products associated with this, and then have this something that would go into the ADAC's program year 7 commercialization activities suite. And so, of course, we do have in our program year 7 an opportunity for a symposium that's focused on commercialization of our activities and associated other folks who wish to join us. We're planning to do that mid-year program year 7, and really sometime in late January, early February. Strategically for us, and the dates are kind of in negotiation right now, and simply just getting the approval the last couple of days for the program, we now got to settle up on our year 7 long-range schedule. With this activity, though, is that the marine-induced polarization ready kit would be something that the commercial response community, the OSRO community, would be able to look at that and seeing that as an opportunity for them as they conduct spill response. We have one other aspect to this that is really on the drawing board right now, and it's going to be a combination of activities that we look in program year 7, potentially in program year 8, depending on how long it takes to run some of the engineering thoughts to ground. And that is a short marine-induced polarization kit that has the ability to be a towed array behind the propeller-driven long-range AUV. Again, that's something that has still got a lot of bit of work for us. I'm putting it out to you in a very unsophisticated state, but the idea is strategically for us, we were looking to try to find some other way for a method of employment or deployment for marine-induced polarization as another capability that goes aboard LRAP. And that's something we want to have discussions with our project champion and really the Maritime Environmental Response Community and Headquarters Coast Guard to see if that scratches an itch for them as we look to, of course, having marine IP being a remarkable oil sensing capability and finding the best ways we can leverage that research that benefits the Coast Guard Marine Environmental Response Team. So I give that as additional reflections. And I have one question that just came up here on the screen here, and this is from my good friend Scott. And I'll post this to Carrie, and I see Scott Sokolowski right there as well for any reflection you would like to provide afterwards. But let me ask the question, how large of an area can be swept using the system in its current state, and then ultimately as you look towards the future? I pose that question to the Marine IP team.
Sure. Right now, we typically, the swath, the horizontal swath of our current cable is about 10 meters. That, of course, can be adjusted by spacing, either adding or moving the receiver electrodes farther apart. So you can add additional electrodes to make the distance between the electrodes larger. The distance across is based on the distance between the receiver electrodes. So adding additional electrodes will increase the swath of the measurement area. And then we typically run a boat at about 2 to 3 knots. And so it's basically as fast as your boat can go and cover that area. We typically would start doing a survey where you space maybe 50 meters apart between your lines, and then you go back and look for indications, and you go back and then cover those areas that you find anomalies in higher resolution. So you can cover an area fairly quickly, but those are the main drivers of the swath size, if that helps.
I'll leave, see how that answers the question out. While looking for any other inputs there, I'll give the floor to Dr. Sokolowski. Any reflections as the overall, thanks from Scott, so perfect. And so Scott, anything you would like to add to the conversation, sir?
No, thanks. Church, I think Carrie did a very nice
job. She's got this program wired from my vantage point, so I agree.
I might add super briefly, sorry, that we are working really closely with a number of OSROs, that we have a very high focus on working with industry, spill responders, and Coast Guard and NOAA, and kind of keeping our network of responders close and our relationships with those responders. So we are working pretty hard to try to develop, as we go through these development iterations, we're working with industry partners and other partners to be able to get input and keep them abreast of our ongoing developments and of the technology and how it works and how it integrates into their non-floating oil spill responding processes. And so, just kind of wanted to let the team know that we are working pretty hard to try to keep ourselves relevant and the spill response community fully aware of our technology and where it stands.
Outstanding, and that's actually will come to quite handily. We will be looking for a early 2021 symposium, and that we're going to be focusing on commercialization. We'll be hosting here in Anchorage. again, COVID conditions permitting, which this is definitely an in-person event, not something we'll plan to do via distance means. But we do want we'll be inviting the Osro communities to join us, and really other researchers that are in this mission space would like to join us as well, thinking about how to transition research into commercial applications that benefit the spill response community is one important facet of this conversation. Let me check real quick to see if there's any other questions. Looking through my, actually, a second here. Oh, I got one right here. Sorry. Just caught. So the question is that this is a great project. What are the things that you're finding in this that you did not expect? Is there any surprises in how you look at the marine IP under ice? That's a great question. Thank you.
That is a great question. I think some of the difficulties that we ran into hardware-wise, I think were certainly unexpected. You know, these systems have been transported around without problems. And so I think that was something in this process of using the equipment in those really cold, icy conditions. And I think that was a good learning process about kind of how we might, feeding a lot of information about how we want to adapt the system to be more robust for those harsh conditions. And just honestly, the signal looks a little different than it does in the sediment. And so it's been interesting to have, I guess, greater understanding of how the signal differs in different environments and different conditions. So sediment versus, which is what we've typically focused on, versus, you know, just up against an ice sheet. Art, is there anything that you would want to add to that?
No, I think you covered everything.
Okay.
The usual style, good coverage. Thanks.
Right. So let me say thanks to the Marine Digitalization team for the great reflection. We do look forward to seeing you finish your program, your 6 work here as soon as you get access to lab space. I know that Seattle's been really hard hit for that. And we also do appreciate the deliberation that the headquarters U.S. Coast Guard team is doing and thinking through what we had proposed is in program year 7, which was additional beyond what the original proposal was. So we know that Coast Guard is doing a great job of running those details around. And I know your project champion is in consultation with leadership of headquarters Coast Guard Maritime Environmental Response to try to make sure what we have proposed squares with their mission needs and ultimately include the transition aspect. So we know that they'll get back to us as soon as they have it, but we hope to be giving you the go-ahead to get underway in the very near term. So congratulations to the work done. Great work being done. And regarding the well beyond stuff that's still on the kind of the proverbial drawing board for us, I'm really excited about the idea of cross-pollination between projects. And so the idea of marine-induced polarization connected to the propeller-driven LRF, I'm hoping that we can kind of run this aground within the ADAC team, and then proposing this within the ADAC family, to then propose as headquarters Coast Guard as something that they could see an application here about where 2 projects actually can be mutually reinforcing. So more to follow on that. I know that from an ocean thermodynamic vantage point, putting a towed array behind an LRAV is a sump on energy, and everything in LRAV is an energy. We're managing energy and battery life. So those things are all part of the equation that need to be considered as we think through this. But preview of coming discussions. So thank you. Virtual round of applause to the Marine Digitalization team. And we've gone through the break, which is understand. So people got to take their bioenvironmental aspects as they need to. We will now move into our ice condition index for the Great Lakes region, IceCon, and of course Arctic IceCon as well. So and at this point, I'm looking for on the screen for Dr. Peng. Are you up, Shifeng? Looking. I see you right there. Okay, so Shifeng. Yes, sir. I have you loud and clear, sir. Please take it away.
Thank you. Let me share my share my screen. So I'm going to pull up the presentation slides.
Okay, so looking for it to come up.
Okay.
Okay, there you go. I got you up now. It's starting to share content.
Okay, I'm going to. All right. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jeff Penn. I believe I'm with my team member, Dr. Sean Butler and Kelsey Fraser here. So we are the ADAC-ARCTIC team. So for today's update, we are going to quickly give you guys the update on both the Great Lake ISCOM and the Arctic ISCOM project. So in the past quarter, we put a lot of effort in the finishing the Great Lake ISCOM project. So one big part of the project is that with the conversation last year, we decided to transition to switch the input model for the ISCOM. So we got the water cycle prediction system, WCPS, which is a weather ice forecast system from the Canadian weather surveys. So we got our data for the past quarter. We modified the ISCOM model using the WCPS data. And then we also, another big part of the project is to complete the operational infrastructure. So we did this with our project partner, Exxon Data Science. So this whole operational operation, as Great Lakes operation, is already set up. So every day it automatically grabs the WCPS data and then calculate a 72-hour ISCOM forecast. So the times the snapshot at 1 hour, 6 hour, 12, 24, 48, and 70 hours. So the products are in the smaller file PNG, basically like a chart, and a larger file GeoCube, which includes all the digital information. Well, we also set up an email subscription, which we are going to use to distribute the Great Lakes ISCOM project for interested users. So basically, we are going to collect the emails from interested users, and then we are basically automatically, starting next season, we are going to automatically send an daily email push for the ISCOM product. So this is basically just a snapshot of a sample plot. You can see here for the ISCOM plot. So this is a plot for May 7th. So there's not much ice, mostly ice-free. And so for a daily product package, we are going to have multiple snapshots, as I just mentioned, within the same email push. So to summarize, the Great Lakes ISCOM operation is ready to go. So we already tested. We also communicated with the National Ice Center, which last month in May approved the plot, the product. I also connected with National Ice Center and ECCC, which provides the WCPS data. So basically, both confirm that the input WCPS data is free to use, and ECCC is going to continue maintain the publication of the WCPS data. So we can reliably use their data as our ISCOM. Great Lakes ISCOM operation. Another part of the Great Lakes ISCOM is to develop a mobile data collection app. I don't know whether my colleague Sean is here. Sean, do you want to add a few words on this?
Yes, we developed both a Apple iOS application, but Apple was difficult to distribute for a lot of technical reasons. And we also developed an Android application. And they were really pretty useful in, at least the Android was, in collecting the data to be able to further improve the model. So I think that was really useful.
And here is the Android version of the map of the data collection app. So I think that's the summary of our progress for the Great Lakes IceCon project. So basically, we're trying to finish this Great Lakes IceCon project by the target date. So now we are going to switch to the Arctic Ice Condition Index, ARCTIC. So I'm going to have my colleague Kelsey Frieder to talk about this. Kelsey?
Thanks, Jafeng. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, depending on which time zone you're in. With regards to what we accomplished, given our work plan for year 6, we were able to accomplish all 5 tasks that we set forth last year. As you can see in this particular slide, we looked at environmental inputs, we looked at sources for environmental models and data that were going to be brought into this project, selected HIOMAS for a number of reasons, most especially the ice concentration data availability and its significant resolution. So on your screen in front of you is an example output of what a vessel, depending on their classification, might access as they try to plan a transit through the Arctic. On the left-hand side is Polar Class 1. These are the most ice-strengthened vessels. In the middle is a PC5, Polar Class 5. Those are vessels that have been ice-strengthened but are not icebreakers. And then PC7 are your general vessels that may or may not have some strengthening. So clear indications for vessel operators. Green means low risk, red means significant risk, and so they're able to make decisions moving forward. Next slide, please. With regards to current accomplishments in this last quarter, we've been focusing on setting ourselves up well to respond to year 7 and get ready for that. We have been approached by QLAC LNG, which is a natural resource developer here in the state who's very interested in what ArcTIC has proposed and what we would be looking at there. So we're looking at opportunities to do case studies. We've been focused on feedback. We've been reaching out to commercial entities to raise awareness of what we're going to be able to provide in year 7, and really focusing on how we ensure the ArcTIC algorithm produces what we say it's going to produce, that our customers are happy, and moving forward for year 7. So next slide. And I think, is that back to you, Jafeng, and the next slide? Yes, it is. Okay, I'll hand it back.
Yeah, so that's a brief, quick summary of both projects, and we're open to questions. Thank you.
So thank you, Jafeng, Dr. Peng, Dr. Butler, and Professor Fraser. I'm grateful for those reflections and that quick update. So a couple things I just mentioned. Obviously, this is the last. Actually, hang a second. We have the Great Lakes Ice Condition Project, as Jafeng has mentioned, is in its last stages. We just want to make sure in the final turnover that our customer in this case are the remarkable champions led by Commander Culinero at the U.S. National Ice Center. She serves as the director of the U.S. National Ice Center, of course, as the Commander of U.S. Navy Ice Center. That the U.S. National Ice Center is satisfied with this, or any other tweaks that we need to tackle, et cetera, for finishing Great Lakes IceCon. So we will do a quick, just a quick email follow-up to our colleagues for Great Lakes IceCon to make sure that that's able to be signed off for that. There's nothing left to remain, but ultimately the customer will make the final call on the finish of our transition activities to Great Lakes IceCon for that part of the project. Second of all, for our Arctic IceCon project, and we're clearly well underway here. There's so much more to do in this next year. And in this aspect, one thing we wanted to make sure is that right now we have, of course, one approach in the environmental factors of looking at biomass. We don't want to be singly threaded to that. We want to be able to be adaptive for Arctic IceCon in the way we were for Great Lakes IceCon, where those folks may remember we were originally going with the Great Lakes Environmental Research Laboratory data. We've transitioned now to the Canadian provided data. And for us, that the environmental inputs should be agnostic to us. What we want is that the ice condition index can just calculate based on whatever set of environmental factors that we provide to it. So in this case here, we're starting with biomass because it's easy to access. It's something that we work closely with as it transitioned last year to academic data sciences and for calculation to be published through the Alaskan Ocean Observation System to then, of course, go to Arctic IRMA and an array of U.S. Coast, being available to an array of U.S. Coast Guard customers as well as other customers that have need for that that modeling of the Arctic ice pack. In this case, I would just mention to the team that as we move into program year 7 here, that we continue to work with biomass for the fact that we want to be adaptable to others, to include having access to GOPS HICOM for the U.S. Navy Research Labs efforts, and also being able to get access to the ICE services that Canada might provide. So I say that as kind of a preamble that as we look, number one, finishing the work in IceCon for the Great Lakes region and advancing the work for the Arctic region. I do see, I just looked up the screen here and I saw a remark from U.S. National Ice Center, one of our ADAC executive counselors, Commander Culinaro. They're asking a great question about, after setting up the biomass, will be ingest other models. And so I hope I've given you the idea that we can thread to other models. Right now we're going with this as easy to work, but it's using that same methodology I just described. I'd like to give the floor to Dr. Peng and Professor Fraser for any follow-ups you would like to provide on that.
Yes, so yeah, George, as you said, we can certainly adapt the Arctic IceCon, the Arctic Ice project with different data input. I mean, we, as you mentioned, we choose biomass because it's, first of all, it's high resolution, and second of all, it also provides a very important parameter relevant to Polaris code, which is the partial concentration of different type of ices. Even though biomass does not, I mean, to calculate the Polaris, it like a real out index, you have to know the distribution of different type of ices. So biomass generally provide like 8 categories of ice, even though it's not as detailed as ideal, but we can use that information to basically categorize different ice types. So if other models have similar capability, we can certainly adapt our model input using some other data. Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Peng, thank you. You got a great question. This is probably, we push this to the team as well. And thanks for, first of all, let me thank the director of the U.S. National Ice Center for that great question. Exceptional. I thank you for it. And I'm looking now at another question that's on the chat box. And this is, are there plans to maintain the phone application? Or will the U.S. National Ice Center be able to receive these reports? I'll give that to the team for your fielding.
Chair, would you please clarify? So are they asking whether they are going to receive reports for the Great Lakes IceCon or the Arctic or the Arctic ice?
I'm sorry, you were a little bit broken there. So could you say that one more time, Jafeng? My apologies. Just didn't quite hear you.
Okay, so yes, so for the Great Lakes IceCon product, we have been in communication with National Ice Center. So my contact there, Mr. Jonathan Edward Opperman, basically he already gave me his email and also the operational, the National Ice Center operational group email. So basically, they are subscribed to the surveys. So, well, no, oh, okay. I need to clarify. So they have already gave us give the email to me in May, but at that time it's already free. So we haven't add them to the email subscription. But before next season, we will add them to the email subscription. So the bottom line is that for the Great Lakes IceCon product, we already have the setup complete with the National Ice Center. For the Arctic Ice Arctic Ice Index, we are still in the developmental phase, so we are not in the phase to distribute the product yet. I hope that answered your question.
Well, let me put a finer point to this. So the answer to the question from my vantage point, the answer is yes, we will maintain the phone application. That'll be one of the commitments the Arctic Domain Awareness Center continues to do beyond even program year 8 as we become. If we transition to another status, whether it's a new funded opportunity or we transition to emeritus status, bottom line, we as a center will continue to maintain this phone application. And the answer is yes, the U.S. NIC should be able to receive these reports. If they're not, we need to fix that and make sure that works. And that's for the Great Lakes region. To the Arctic region, one thing we have there, of course, is phone application there would have you outside of regular cellular range, where the Great Lakes region's got pretty decent connectivity, certainly not the case in the high latitudes. So that's one of the things we will need to work to see the applicability of the phone application into the Arctic region, which is a much different marine operating environment than the marine transportation world of the Great Lakes. So that's one that will be work in progress for us from our vantage point. Great questions, and I thank our colleagues for that one. I'm looking to see if there's any other points here. And I'm just searching. So far, nothing further to add at this point. So let me do a virtual round of applause to the ice conditions for the Great Lakes region and the Arctic IceCon team. If I could ask you, Jafeng, to stop sharing screen, that would be great. And if there's something that comes up from our colleagues at US NIC that has not been covered, obviously we're ready to receive those questions and run them to ground. So thanks to one and all, and thanks for the director of US NIC and Commander of US National Ice Center to be on this call to help shepherd those questions. I'd like to now transition for the discussions. We're working towards the back end of our discussions today, and this is now the Arctic Vessel Monitoring Geofencing Alert Awareness team. We have the combination of Captain Retired Buddy Custard, U.S. Coast Guard, and Dr. Sean Butler, U.S. Army Retired Lieutenant Colonel, also serving University of Alaska Anchorage. The two of them, the dynamic duo of Captain Custard and Dr. Lieutenant Colonel Retired Butler, to run this conversation forward for Arctic Vessel Monitoring, Geofencing, and Alert Awareness. Captain Custard, I'd like to queue you up, and then Dr. Butler have you queued up to follow.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Church, and good day all. Let me share my screen real quick.
And Buddy, it looks like it's coming up for us. There we go.
Okay.
Got a nice snowy picture there.
And for the video, make sure I get the right setting. Well, Church, if for some reason the audio doesn't come through on the video, please let me know.
Hi, sir. I'm standing by.
All right, well, good day all. Like I said, I would just give you a quick update on where we're at with the Arctic Vessel Monitoring Geofencing Alert. I'm going to talk about the first phase, kind of on the unclassified side of the house on the PatTrack system, and Dr. Butler will follow up on kind of the second phase of the project, working it to integrate it in the Coast Guard Enterprise system. One of the aspects that we did was that we got a lot of feedback from our customers is kind of what does the overview look like? It's like what the project is in simplistic terms. So we created a video here last month to try to make this, hopefully I got the right settings take place so you can hear the audio.
And Buddy, I'm not hearing the audio at this point.
Okay. Let me try to go back to the settings here. Oh, geez. Like I said, we got it to work last time, but
Yeah, you did. So I know you can. I know you can do it.
yeah, there was a button here somewhere. I'm trying to find where it was set at. It's where it shows the audio within the screens. It's not giving me that option right now.
Buddy, is it in the lower right-hand corner with the display settings?
Okay, here, let me. Optimize best appearance, optimize best compatibility. Nope, that doesn't seem to be it.
What if you right-click on the video itself?
Okay, I've done that. Because last time I gave an option to show it through WebEx through your audio screen. And it didn't give me that.
Everybody, just take a look in the share screen drop down. Make sure there's an opportunity to share the audio as well. I know you had this solved last time around we did this, so.
Your share movie TV. Let me see if that works. I kind of changed the setting a little bit. Are you hearing it?
No, I'm not, sir. I'm not seeing or hearing at this moment. So, buddy, you may not.
Yeah, I think that's where we're at. Yep.
Give you another moment here to try this, but if this doesn't work, we'll need to carry on.
Yep. No, I agree.
One more roll. We'll roll the dice one more time. Otherwise, just let's move on.
Probably not.
Well,
no.
At this point, if you want to say, if you can let it play or move to the next slide.
Well, I apologize for not being able to get it set up correctly. So we'll go ahead and move forward. But it provides an overview of what the entire project is and everything. And it is posted on the website for people to go to and look at it. So I do please encourage you to do that. One of the aspects that we've been able to break through on the dynamic zones and the geofencing is what we call dynamic zone creation and demonstration, to where we can now tag it to a moving target, a moving vessel, using its code for the Maritime Mobile Service identities. And each vessel is assigned one of these MSSIs. And so we can ping it to that, tag it to that, and we can follow a vessel and set up a geofencing. Usually geofencing has been on a static object, and so now we're able to put it on a moving object. And this is a screenshot, a quick video of this. There's no sound to this one, so this will work. But what this is it's showing the software of how you create a dynamic geofencing, and it's very simple. Understanding things, we've developed things where it's drop-down menus. Just putting in the name, in this case here, the vessel name that's going on. Like I said, the MSSI, and then next they're going to set the zones. You can create how big of radius you want around this vessel that's moving. Right now, they're going to set it at 2 nautical miles. And then you can color code it. So they're picking a color and then dropping in MSSI again, and then they're changing the color because they just didn't like how it looked on the screen. So that's it. I mean, that's all it takes to create the geofencing now with the software that was developed. So it'll always, as this vessel is moving, that geofencing will stay around it. But the next phase is now creating the alert. Okay, we have a geofencing on this vessel, but now the question is when do we want to be notified that another vessel is penetrating that geofencing? And this is very good for lightering operations, because when we have tankers that are operating out there, right now we have 5 to 6 tankers operating in the U.S. Arctic doing lightering operations. So the Coast Guard can now track when there's a tanker out there and when another boat's coming alongside to conduct the tankering operation. So this can trigger alarms. And that's what this setting is now doing. It's allowing the operator to set various parameters that we have, filters and zones. You can do all kinds of conditions, exit, enter, all of the above, an aspect, so that you can receive the proper alarm setting. And then you can get it by email, but it's also designed so you can get a text message too. So you can have it sent to your iPhone or your iPad or mobile device or whatever. So at this point, they're just applying it, it's okay, and it's live. So as the vessel starts to approach, it comes in and it gets in close contact to where this barrier is, it'll send a message. And the message will look in one of 3 formats. The in-app, the PackStrack software in and of itself will send that line item up to the left. Or you can get an email that gives a geographic reference point, which is also new that we've added to the software and everything to kind of visualize what's going on. Or to the far right, you get a text message aspect of it. So the applications are very numerous now. Usually AIS was set up for just vessel avoidance collision, but because of this technology, now they can use it, like say, dynamic geofencing. In the case that the Coast Guard was very interested up here in Alaska was tanker lightering operations. But what we call vessels of concerns, you can set up these geofencing so you can understand if a vessel is doing something that's out of the norm, an anomaly. In the case that we use it for quite a bit of the large commercial vessels that are transiting between the Far East and Northern America, if they usually transit around 20, 25 knots. So if they slow down to about 3 knots out in the middle of the ocean, that gives us concern, especially as they're operating close to the Aleutian Islands. And we can get alarms, and then we can inquire to the vessel what's going on. And we found through this, there's quite a bit of vessels that slow down. Most of it's due to weather or they're ahead of schedule. But about 25% of the time that we get these notices, the vessel has a mechanical problem that's impacting their propulsion. That now raises concerns, and those concerns are now pushed to proper decision makers. And that gets areas to be avoided, critical habitat, vessel compliance. The Coast Guard's also starting to see how to use this for search and rescue, maritime law enforcement, and waterways management. Because of this, and the team that we had in place, our guidance team that represented the Alaska Fish and Game, NOAA, U.S. Coast Guard, and some other conservation foundations, the Alaska Conservation Foundation was able to get an award from the Wildlife Conservation Society to piggyback off of this research project to expand this. And what we've been able to do is create another website called the alaskageofence.org, and that's where that video is hanging, to where this allows stakeholders and people interested in getting geofencing, especially resource trustees in the various departments and state and government agencies, resource trustees, to be able to request a geofence and how that would look. And it's very simple. So taking that extra grant, here it is, a programmer is just inputting their email, the organization they're representing. They want a new geofence, the alert. They'll be able to customize it. Now they're going to be able to just draw the zone. We have basically a point and click system that we've been able to employ. So the requester here is just now picking where they want to have their zone. So like I said, just point and click. It puts in all the coordinates for the zone. Then they're going to ask for if they have any kind of special instructions, vessel types. They can have all vessel types, or they can single out the various types. The type of AIS, there's two types, AIS A and B, and it's mainly just wattage difference. The large ships carry A, the smaller ones usually B. Any navigational status parameters, then they can put speed restrictions, length restrictions, and then they put in where they want the email alerts or their phone numbers to go to. If they want to put phone numbers in there, start, stop dates. And then in just a minute, then they're just going to put in just a quick final note. And many of the research, some of the resource trustees were using this last year, and they were getting over close to 24,000 messages because we're really stressing the system, and everything worked out quite well. And then this goes now to the Marine Exchange of Alaska, who will then process it, work with the various agencies requesting it to make it go live. So on the unclassified side of the house, this project has basically come to an end as far as meeting all the objectives. We've been able to create the geofencing, the alert notifications that can go across multiple types of platforms, unclassified platforms. We can now mark moving objects, vessels, tagging it to the MSSI and provide these sort of alerts. But it's also laid the foundation for Dr. Butler for her phase, and I'll kind of let her talk about her phase of the operation.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we got you loud and clear. Thank you, buddy. Dr. Butler, you've got the floor.
Okay. So my task is to develop a geofencing capability in the CG1 view. And what we are doing is leveraging the work that Buddy Custard has done with the unclassified system, or the one that's open in the PackTrack system. And they learned a lot about the kinds of requirements and how people use it and how they need to be able to use it. But we've worked with users from the Anchorage sector to determine additional requirements that the PackTrack system wouldn't necessarily meet because of the nature of the community it services, and try to get those requirements that he's developed and integrate them into CG1 view, the Coast Guard's command and control system. And so there's a lot of additional requirements in working with the Anchorage sector that we came up with that they need to have in order to do their job. And so the idea is this past year is to come up with those requirements as well as a design on how we can integrate into CG1 view. And we're really the first organization, outside organization of the program, to try to integrate with CG1 view. And so we want it to be so that the requirements or our application integrates smoothly, so that our transition is really smooth into CG OneView. It's really easier for us to make decisions early on the design and choice of tools that don't impact the actual outcome, but make it a lot easier to integrate with CG OneView when that time comes. So we've been working on a design, and we've been very successful in working with the Coast Guard to start to get the technical details that it takes for us to understand what are the tools we have to use, how do we do the development, do we do it outside of the HISN or do we do it inside the HISN? And those questions are starting to get answered, and we're starting to understand the architecture of the CG OneView application itself so that we know how to tie this application into it. And that's really important because it will reduce the transition, but more importantly, it's a way for the Coast Guard to leverage, to develop the tools necessary and the information necessary for other third-party application developers to contribute applications that will add value to CG OneView. And so we're kind of on our team, which will be some fellow students and Axiom Data Science, are kind of on this bleeding edge of working together with CG OneView technical staff so that we can actually do an effective prototype that they can then later integrate. And so what happens is, for those who don't understand, we understand the architecture now better of how CG OneView works. And that's like understanding the architecture of a building so you know how to tie into the building. Also, what are the tools they're using? How do they do their development environment? And setting up a process where we can do software development and get immediate or close to near real-time integration or integration testing so that we can actually see that we're staying on track and our paths are not diverging. And so that's pretty important in software engineering nowadays, that you do a continuous integration so that you know that you're on track. So we've gotten a lot of material from the program office and a lot of support from the program office to start this process. It's going to kick off, the development's going to kick off in the next year and next fiscal year, which is year 7. And this year, what we've been able to accomplish is developing a lot of requirements that will help various aspects of operations and planning within the Coast Guard for geofencing, as well as a fairly good understanding of how they've built CG OneView and how we're going to be able to tie into that and what it's going to take. So that's, it may not sound like a lot, but actually that's generally a challenge in any software development projects, to figure out enough information so you know how to tie into the existing systems. So that's my portion.
Okay. So while you were speaking there, I just got text in for Dr. Butler or Captain Hester or both. This is regarding your discussions are fascinating to me. This is the text. Your questions, your reflections are fascinating to me. My question is, I see what do you do with all the numbers of previously used geofences? Do they go in a library? Do they go to the trash? Is there a way that you plan to maintain previously declared geofences for future use?
Yes. Yeah. So I know Captain Custer has the same question or has worked on that same problem, but definitely we have a requirement to, and really what it is management of geofences. Who can create them? Who can share them to whoever needs to be shared? Who has authorization to delete them? We have developed requirements for how do I retrieve a geofence? I need to create one. Was there one in that area before? And so how can I retrieve one that may exist, maybe copy it and tweak it a little to make it my own? There's lots and lots of requirements we have to do those kinds of things. And the biggest one, and it may be a challenge, is came from the Anchorage sector. They would like to be able to essentially keep a history of events so that they can replay them for legal reasons if they need to. Say, for instance, they see the ship approaching, you know, and they want to hit the record button and record the events that they see happening for later use. And so that was another requirement that came out from the Anchorage sector, is being able to replay time snippets of previously existing geofences with the, or existing geofences with the AIS data associated with that.
It's a great
Yeah,
answer.
sure. Yeah, if I could add to that, I mean, Dr. Butler is correct. One of the first things that we identified early on in regards to that question is the management of the geofencing enterprise system and how that's going to work, because we did see that issue is all these folks creating geofencing, a lot of duplication of efforts. So one of the things that we are looking at is just what Dr. Butler says, is how do we manage that? And that was identified very early on, because there's so much data. How do you manage all this data? And as we're giving this feature out to various echelons within the Coast Guard, as also resource trustees, how is all this managed? So we're not duplicating efforts and everything. So one of the things that they're also looking at is creating some drop-down menus for geofencings that they know are kind of static or that are commonly used. And then some of those then can be customizable. So those are kind of the next generation issues that they're looking at.
Thank you, Captain Custer. I appreciate that very much. Let me take a look here, see if there's, and by the way, exceptional answer to both of you. Let me see if there's any other questions here that are coming up. Hang on a second. Bouncing between systems here is taking a little bit of time to catch it. One other question that just came in, I'm sorry I didn't see this earlier. As you look to future work in geofencing, how do vessel operators leverage geofences while underway? What's the process to, let me summarize it, it's a little bit fractured. How do vessel operators advance request geofences or leverage geofences while they're underway, especially in a comms limited environment?
That would be you, buddy, to answer that.
Yeah,
I was gonna say, I think that one falls to Captain Custer.
Well, no, that's you know that's I mean that's, I'm not going to kid that there is a little challenge, and that gets back into the geofencing management and the protocols and everything else trying to set that up. I mean, one of the limitations with the ships is just the data feed that they have that they can push the information out. But one of the things though that we show that you can do is creating a website, and that website portal, AlaskaGeofencing.org. We showed by just going online, if somebody has internet connectivity, they can go online to create the geofencing for them. So a vessel owner operator wants to do that, they can go on this portal and create that. And then it gets vetted back to the parent company to turn it on, which gets back to the issue that we just spoke about, is it is about geofencing management. And what are then going to be the protocols to vet those through and make that happen. But once that is able to happen, the ship can monitor as long as they have internet connectivity. They can get it, and they can get it set up to where they can have this information pushed to them via email, which doesn't take a lot of data in the satellite system for them to receive emails. So they can either request that the shore base set it up for them and push them the information that they want through their notifications, or they can go on a web portal and create it themselves to where they'll get the push notifications. So the capability is out there now. It's just now refining it for the ship operators.
Makes lots of sense to me. Thank you for that. I'm looking, and I don't have a response to that on the email or text, so I will, if there's anything I get back from that, I will push to you all. At this point, I'd like to give Captain Custer and Dr. Lieutenant Colonel retired Butler, the two of you, I'll give you a virtual round of applause and thank you for your combined efforts and individual research endeavors. So just simply, both of you are just doing great work. Obviously, Buddy, we're in the last stretches of your activities here, but we know that Dr. Butler will continue onwards in its efforts, moving into the CG1 view application of it. But we also know we're here to help and stay stitched together. So folks that may have questions regarding the PackTrax edition as we go into program year 7, please know that we maintain a good relationship with the Marine Prevention Response Network as well as the Alaska Marine Exchange. And we're happy to help connect the dots to all the customers out there that may want to pull that particular thread further forward. So again, thanks to you both. I'll now transition to our last activity, and I appreciate everyone hanging with us as we'll be running about 15 minutes late by the time we finish up here. We have now the last discussion, and this is our education program update. Ellie Matthews, our overall education administrative manager, who's currently doing a magnificent job right now in running our Arctic Summer Intern project. I now look to give the floor to Ellie for her reflections as we finish up on a dead sprint. This final program year 6 quarterly customer and partners roundtable. Ellie, you've got the floor.
Great, thank you, Church. Can you hear me all right?
Loud and clear.
Okay, great. So I don't have any slides to share. I figured I can just give an update and a chat with those that are interested in our education program. So for those that are unfamiliar with ADAC's education program, it has 2 major components, and that is our fellowship program and our summer internship program. So the fellowship program involves students throughout the entire academic year, as well as flowing into the summer as well. And the internship occurs as it sounds throughout the summer, with the option to also continue on as an ADAC fellow. So I'll first go over a bit of our fellowship program and where it is now and where it's going, and then I'll go into our internship program. So as of right now, we currently have 13 total ADAC fellows here with our center. So that includes 8 undergraduate and graduate fellows, so 4 and 4 from the University of Alaska Anchorage. We have 2 undergraduates from the University of Texas at El Paso. We have 2 from the University of New Hampshire, which is 1 undergraduate and 1 graduate student. And we also have 1 graduate student. She's a PhD student from the University of New Orleans in Louisiana. So that's for a total of 13 fellows right now. And since our last Customers and Partners Roundtable, we've also had 1 of our undergraduate fellows graduate from both the Fellows Program and his undergraduate degree. He was studying computer science up here at the University of Alaska Anchorage, and his next steps include a full scholarship research assistantship at UAA, where he'll pursue a Master's of Science in Geospatial Data, and he'll be beginning in the fall of 2020. So we're really excited for him. Some other past events that have taken place since our last Customers and Partners Roundtable include, we had the Arctic Marine Science Symposium that took place here in Anchorage in January. We had multiple students participate in that, including some that traveled all the way up from Texas to present on their posters. And we even had 1 of our graduate fellows win the poster competition for the best graduate student poster. So that was a really, really incredible event for all of our fellows involved. We also, for those of you that probably were here as well, we had several fellows participate in the May virtual annual meeting. We had some present on their work on the Arctic oil spill modeling project with Dr. Kinner, and then we also had them present on the overall fellows program as well, and that was really incredible to see all of them and just what they've done throughout the year. So as a component of our ADAC fellows program, we require that each of our students do a 10-week summer internship. So currently, no matter the kind of setbacks with COVID-19, we actually have all of our fellows placed in a current internship program, but they are all virtual at this point. So currently we have 11 ADAC fellows in our Arctic Summer Internship program, which I will get into in a moment, but that is entirely virtual this summer. We also have 2 fellows that are working on a virtual internship with Bigelow Laboratories for Ocean Sciences, and they're specifically working on the Arctic copepods project that you heard from previously. We also have 1 ADAC fellow working on an internship at UAA here with Dr. Kaisha Wang, and he's focusing on specifically a machine learning project. And we have one ADAC fellow also here at UAA working with Dr. Catherine Milligan-Meyer, and she's focusing on oil spill bioremediation research using stickleback here in Alaska. And then lastly, we have two ADAC fellows that are continuing their work on the Arctic oil spill modeling project with Dr. Kenner. So a pretty wide range of activities that these students are involved in, no matter kind of the current situation. So we're excited that they're all pretty busy. So on that topic, I'll go into updates on our Arctic Summer Internship Program. So usually right about now, we would be finishing up 2 weeks of field work and adventures in Utqiagvik, Alaska for our Arctic Summer Internship Program. Unfortunately, this year, due to the risk of COVID-19, we did have to transition the entire program to an online program, which has been really, really interesting to say the least, but also really exciting. To transition a program that's entirely focused on field work into a virtual program was quite the feat, but it's been amazing to see all the involvement from both guest speakers and the ADAC team and ADAC projects getting involved in this overall program. So in total, we have a 10-week program that started on June 1st. So we're on week 4 currently, and it will end on August 7th. I am co-leading the program along with the program's principal investigator, Dr. Craig Treaty from the University of Texas, El Paso. We're delivering the program largely through Zoom as our meeting platform, but we also have essentially created a classroom space on Microsoft Teams, and then also using Google Calendar for various events. And many of you on the phone have also received those events for guest presentations. So we have a total of 11 students participating in that program, and we are just about spanning the entire United States as far as time zones, which has made it really interesting but really fun. So we have 6 students from the University of Anchorage up here, Alaska. We have 1 student from the U.S. Naval Academy, 1 from the University of Texas, El Paso, 1 from the University of New Orleans, 1 from the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, and then as well as 1 from the University of New Hampshire. So overall, the program takes place it's Tuesday through Thursday from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. and that's Alaska Standard Time. So again, it spans the entire country. It is following a rough series of themes where we've started narrow on Arctic Alaska, and we've broadened out to focus on the U.S. Arctic as well as international Arctic themes, and also looking at Arctic disasters and Arctic innovations in technology. The program is also composed of bi-weekly student Ignite presentations, which is a really interesting skills-based presentation method in which the students have to present a 5-minute presentation where each of their slides automatically transition on their own without them doing anything every 15 seconds. So we have them very involved in working on skills-based components as well as learning about Arctic-specific topics. We have a number of roundtable discussions specifically focused on a variety of films that we've been watching as a group, as well as an independent research project for each student and a group project that's focused on Arctic disasters specifically. So in addition to all of those, we also have a really comprehensive series of amazing guest speakers. So for example, last week we had Gil Castellanos from the Arctic Council's Conservation of Arctic Flora and Fauna Working Group present to the students just this week, actually. Next week, we will have Dr. John Farrell from the U.S. Arctic Research Commission. And this week, we started a comprehensive series of lectures from local, both leaders, operators, and just community members in Utqiagvik, Alaska, that is being put together by Corey Erickson at UIC Science. So just as a very small tip of the iceberg, we have members coming to speak to the students virtually from the North Slope Bureau, the Department of Risk Management, ASRC, as well as whaling captains and the NOAA Barrow Observatory. So it's a pretty comprehensive program, and it's been quite the adventure to put it together, but not to toot my own horn, but I think it's going pretty well so far as we exit week 4 actually into week 5, so halfway through. So we have 6 more weeks of the ASIP program coming up to end in August. We will also have 1 fellow graduating from both UAA as well as our ADAC fellowship program at the end of this summer. She will be graduating with her master's degree in biology and pursuing a PhD in biology at the University of Alaska Fairbanks to start in the fall. And we will also have one other graduate student who will be completing his fellowship with us at the end of the summer to pursue his last semester here at UAA, where he's focusing on interdisciplinary data science. So there's just a little snapshot of where we've been, where we are, and where we're going forward. So at this time, I thank you all for listening and hanging on there, and hopefully you're not asleep at this point, and I'll take any questions.
Great, thank you, Ellie. Looking now to see if there are any questions popping up on the screen here. I'm looking at my text real quick. Not seeing anything here. Looking. One other spot to check. Hang on. Okay, I've not seen any questions at this point, Ellie, but I also know it's getting late in the conversation, so that doesn't necessarily surprise me. I'll offer the floor to anybody who has any questions you want to bring up on the screen or chat, or again, text or email. Everyone's welcome for that. As we're looking for that, I want to say two things. Number one, Ellie, thank you. You were given a serious lemon to make some exceptional lemonade in having to transition the Arctic Summer Intern Project from where we'd prefer to be right now. Frankly, I prefer, like we did last year, hosting this meeting from the Bear Arctic Research Center, hosted by UIC Science. And we hope next year's Customer Partners Roundtable will be once again conducted via the BARC, as we've done in the last 2 years. But thank you for making the program where we couldn't take the students to the North Slope. We're able to bring the North Slope to the students, plus add a remarkable array of guest speakers from across the nation. So thank you for making that all happen. I know that within the center, you've just been working nonstop to make this all happen. And we are personally at the center grateful for the work you're doing. And just a reminder to all the players on the call here, that all the work that we do as a center, whether it's hardware, software, firmware, knowledge products, the peopleware that we do through the summer intern project, and also through the overall ADAC Fellows program that's guided and led by Ellie, is frankly the most important product we produce. And so I thank you for the work you do for this, Ellie. I'm truly grateful. I know I reflect that of the center. And I also want to thank, shout out to Dr. Craig Tweed. He's not able to be on the call with us right now, for his work in the University of Texas El Paso in the Arctic Summer Intern Project. He and you, of course, have been jointly hosting all the weekly calls on this. And I know that having been a guest lecturer a couple times over now, that you two are really running a great tight ship for that. So thank you for that. I also want to do a shout out to Mr. Corey Erickson at UIC Science and Uktiavik for his work at Uktiavik Nuclear Corporation Science. That Corey is really instrumental in bringing the North Slope to the students in this program. And certainly I would also do a reflection that each of these sessions are being recorded, and so that the information that's being shared can actually have a shelf life beyond just the students themselves, but having this queued up in our library and having that available for future folks is important to reflect. Speaking of that, let me just take one more look here to see if there's any other questions or feedback for the education program. And not seeing any, so let me give you at this point, Ellie, a virtual round of applause. My thanks for the work that you've done for this. I know that folks, we're past about 9 minutes past the end of our scheduled session here. So just a couple of reflections to bring this to a close. Number one, we as a center, as usual, are sprinting through the tape in program year 6, preparing for program year 7. Number two, we've had the privilege of the last 4.5 years of service in the center of having Dr. Larry Hinsman serve as our research director. Larry is now gone to the Office of Science Technology Policy Associate of the White House, and also shepherding the Interagency Arctic Research Policy Committee, IARPC. So we miss Dr. Hinsman greatly, but we know that he's going to do great work to supporting the nation and the national research enterprise for the Arctic via the White House. We have the honor of announcing Dr. Nettie LaBelle-Hamer as our new research director, who's also serving as the interim vice chancellor for research at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. Nettie's doing a great job coming in, where she's, of course, tremendously got a lot of tremendous work getting underway at as the interim vice chancellor for research at UAF, but she's also digging in hard and learning our program, and is a great research director for our center. And we look forward to her accomplishments and her support to our activities in the coming program year. Next of all, of course, as we look to program year 7 activities, knowing that in addition to our research activities, the workshop activities that we'll be hosting and also participating in, and the educational programs and activities, including our commercialization efforts that we plan to this activities in our year 7. We are grateful for the fact that 7 is now followed by program year 8. We know that we've got so much planned for the agenda in year 7, and the ongoing problems of COVID is going to make it difficult to do everything we plan to do. So knowing that we program year 8 to continue good work, we're grateful for that. And I also share to you our real sincerest appreciation for our program leadership at DHS Science Technology University Programs. And this is Mr. Theo Gmalis, our program manager, as well as headquarters U.S. Coast Guard and the work they do, and specifically CG 926, Ms. Karen Messenger, retired U.S. Coast Guard herself. And Karen is our great plug-in, and she has got an absolutely thankless job in trying to shepherd our research activities across and coordinate literally across the headquarters U.S. Coast Guard. So we are perpetually in great debt to Karen and her work at CG 926 as she tries to get everything coordinated through the headquarters, and not an easy task to do. So thankless work, collateral duty for her, and she does it so exceptionally well. So a shout out and thanks to Karen. We also would like to take a quick moment to say thanks to headquarters U.S. Coast Guard at the Senior Arctic Policy Advisor, Mr. Shannon Jenkins, CG5PW, as well as his boss, SCS, Mr. Mike Emerson, who serves as the Director of Maritime Transportation Systems there in the 5. And so the headquarters team is just great partners and collaborators. Our shout out to U.S. Coastal Research Development Center, PAC area, District 17, including Mr. Phil Thorne, Captain U.S. Coast Guard retired, who serves as the Arctic Planner and really a good plug-in for us there at District 17. And of course, our great friends in District 17 Sector Anchorage, all the great work there. So last thing I'll just mention real quick is a shout out to our executive counselors. And we call them unofficially the dean of our program executive counselors, but John Farrell, Rudy Peschel, Heather Cusinero, Paul Hubbard, and the array of great friends that these counselors, and also include Vice Admiral Tom Barrett, Deputy Commissioner Mike Duxbury, and we're just thankful for the executive counselors and what they do. So in kind of a wrap up, we will plan to for the next roundtable for us will be in late September. We'll finish program year 6, get underway in year 7 by late September. Should have a pretty decent recap of the summer activities provided to you. So we look forward to providing that again in late September. The dates we'll nail that down once we get program year 7 underway. So that's a quick recap. Let me get a moment here for the team. I have Dr. Kazi, Mr. Rowe that are on. So Doug, any final reflections from you, sir?
Just quickly, so thank you. Well, thank you everyone who's actually still on the call. And so for the record, thank you everybody who was involved for the entire roundtable. Like I said at the beginning, this is really important for us because it allows us to, on a quarterly basis, provide updates and new results that happened since the last update, as well as getting comments and input from clients and those who are interested in our results. Thank you, everybody.
Super. Thank you, Douglas. And Mr. Rowe, Jason Carlson, and Olaf, U.S. Coast Guard retired. Any reflections from you, sir?
Just would like to thank everyone again for their time and attention. You know, the progress that we make on these projects is largely due to the folks on this call, everybody's time and attention and inputs, and it's all greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Super. I appreciate that, Olaf. Let me bring this to close and saying we'll stay on the line for anybody who would like to have any push-off lines with us. We'll be happy to field those questions as they come up. Please know that we know that there is the gift of your time today is quite remarkable, and we are exceptionally appreciative of that. So thank you for that. Thank you as customers. That includes, of course, the United States Coast Guard. and of course, customers such as U.S. National Ice Center, and our partners that involve fellow researchers and academics, fellow members that are focused on Arctic research from industry, and others. So thanks again to one and all. We'll look forward to you joining us in the Customer Partners Roundtable in Program Year 7, Quarter 1, in the latter part of September. Thanks so very much. We're calling it a wrap.